Chapter 2753. Xiaohe, come and meet Mr. Qin. He'll be one of your bosses in the future. Xiaohe walked over to Qin Zhao, trembling. President Qin, hello. Xiaohe looked at Qin Zhao with some fear in her eyes. It was probably because in the movies, anyone with the word boss wasn't a good person. So she kept her head down in front of Qin Zhao and didn't dare to meet his eyes. Wang He was quite observant. He probably knew what was going on in Xiaohe's mind. He could only give Qin Zhao an apologetic look. Qin Zhao smiled and shook his head. Actually, they'd all experienced this kind of immaturity in society before. No one would give Xiaohe a hard time because of this. For the people of society, immaturity was a rare and precious quality in their eyes. Just then Qin Zhao received Fei Lai's call. Darling, I think the kids and I are being watched. Hearing Fei Lai's words, Qin Zhao's expression changed. He said to Wang He and Xiaohe, I'm going to take a call. After walking out of the restaurant, Qin Zhao asked, Huh? You're outside now? Oh, in the hotel. How did you find out? I don't know. It's just a feeling. I'll go back now, Qin Zhao said. Although he felt that this kind of thing was very mysterious, sometimes it was just an illusion. However, Qin Zhao didn't think that it was Fei Lai's illusion. Everyone in the family was normal. Even Fei Lai, who was the closest to a normal person, had her senses strengthened because of Qin Zhao's protection spells. Since she sensed that someone was watching her, it was very likely that she was right. Qin Zhao didn't want to gamble with Fei Lai and his family. Even if there was no danger, he had to eliminate it. If there was danger, he had to be prepared. After greeting Wang He, Qin Zhao hurried back to the hotel. Fei Lai, how's it going? Gone, Fei Lai said. After you came back, the feeling disappeared. Fei Lai frowned and looked at Qin Zhao. I'm not joking. That feeling makes my hair stand on end. Frowning, Fei Lai looked at him. I'm not joking with you. That feeling makes my hair stand on end. Qin Zhao didn't feel it, but he still chose to believe Fei Lai. Qin Zhao analyzed the situation in his mind. Fei Lai was abroad and didn't know any enemies in the spiritual world. The people she knew were all from the supernatural organization. They would never hurt or spy on their own family. Thus, either the person monitoring them was not from the spirit world, or it was a cultivator from the country. However, he had no clue. Let's say it was a friar watching Fei Lai. Their ultimate target was very likely to be him. If it was an ordinary person spying on Fei Lai and her children, they might be looking for money. If he was a cultivator, then his goal would be much more complicated. If it was a cultivator, the other party would have chosen to retreat the moment he returned. However, his shadow vision did not detect it. Shadow vision allowed him to sense gazes from the shadows. No matter how vague it was, even if it was through surveillance cameras, he could sense it as long as it was subjective. But Qin Zhao did not activate shadow vision. Putting aside the other party's strength, at the very least his standard was very high. Just then he received West's call. West, what's wrong? President, are you in China now? Yeah, I'll be going back in 2 days. If there's anything else, we'll talk about it when we get back. No, guild leader, can you postpone it for 2 days? Why? Are you planning to usurp the throne in my absence? West didn't think the joke was funny at all. He'd found Qin Zhao in the first place. Plus, he didn't think that he had the ability and prestige to replace Qin Zhao. What a joke. If he had such thoughts, the members of the supernatural organization would probably be more than happy to tie him up and send him to Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao was too powerful. Furthermore, this kind of despairingly powerful strength also prevented anyone from having any thoughts of betrayal or resistance. Moreover, the supernatural organization only had a few people. Almost all the resources were obtained by Qin Zhao. If they chased Qin Zhao away, the people who stayed would hate them. Tell me, what's up? President, we've formed an alliance with a Chinese sect. A Chinese sect is interested in the supernatural organization? Qin Zhao was Chinese, but he knew that Chinese sects were all arrogant. The supernatural organization called itself an international organization, but it was actually a third-rate organization. The North American branch that Qin Zhao belonged to was even more remote. It was third-rate among third-rate organizations. Forming an alliance with a Chinese sect? Are you sure you're not joking? It's mainly because we have dragon products on hand. Some time ago, Ruan Faxi made a batch of dragon blood jades and put them on the market, but they were immediately snapped up. Then the buyer somehow found us and learned that we had more dragon blood on hand, so they planned to buy it all. However, we don't need that much money, so after a while we reached an agreement. We can form an alliance and help each other. We can buy some of their magic and specialties, and we can also provide dragon blood. They will buy it at the market price, so it's a mutual exchange. At the same time, we can recommend 3 disciples to exchange places with each other every year, and they can go to each other's organization or sect to learn each other's spells. Damn, it's an exchange? That's a good thing. Yes, it's a good thing, but something happened. What happened? Did they go back on their word? That's not the case. The people who made the agreement with us didn't go back on their word. Their sect's elders and sect master personally promised them and even signed a magic contract. However, there was a problem in their sect. What's the problem? There's a rebellion in their sect. Right now we only got some information through special channels. Their leader is dead. Of the 4 elders who made an agreement with us, 1 is heavily injured, 1 is captured, and 2 are missing. Not long ago, the 2 missing elders contacted us, hoping to get our help. It's not good for outsiders like us to get involved in their sect's internal affairs, right? It's their princess. She's in danger and needs our protection, but we're overseas. With our power, we don't dare to get involved in China's supernatural affairs. We don't have a princess in China. It's the leader's daughter. Qin Zhao sighed. Are you sure you want to get involved? Even if I get involved, I'm still an outsider. If I don't handle it well, it might cause endless trouble. But we've already made an agreement with them. We're allies. Now that the leader is dead, if we don't care about his daughter, that's going back on our word. Chapter 2754. Then what do you mean? We'll talk about cooperation later, but we have to save the girl at least. President, don't you think so? I don't have time now. Qin Zhao was still having a headache over his family. He didn't have time to save a stranger like a princess. President, what's more important than saving a princess whose life is in danger? Fei Lai and the kids are being watched. I don't have any leads yet. Do you think I have time to wander around at a time like this? Also, the leader's daughter isn't a princess. West fell silent. Fine. If you have the girl's contact information, give her a call and let her come to me. It's easy for me to protect her under my eyes, but I really don't have the time to look for her all over the country. No. No contact number? You don't have any elders who can contact you? They don't either. So they're missing people? Forget it. They've probably been eliminated by now. The fights between sects in China are very cruel. Killing 9 generations is basic. They're definitely not dead. That's what their elders said. Their elders can't even find a single person, and they're so confident that they're going to trick you into this and drag you down? And you're so confident that you're going to agree? I don't think they're bad people. West, I think you're usually a smart person. Why do you have to get involved in this? So what if they're saved? That sect has already changed its name. Although the alliance is no longer valid, don't make enemies. It's really troublesome. President, I think there's something wrong with you. You're usually fearless. How come you're even more cowardly than me now? Anyway, I don't care. If you want to, do it yourself. If we foreigners go to China, we'll be targeted as soon as we get off the plane. We're too eye-catching and can't move at all. President, you're Chinese. It's convenient for you. How about I protect Fei Lai and the kids while you save them? Save it. Qin Zhao didn't even know who was watching Fei Lai and the kids. It would be fine if they were weak, but in Huaxia's supernatural world, all sorts of demons and ghosts could exist. Qin Zhao had defeated 3 terrifying existences that were hard to come by overseas in the past month. Right, there was also the Daoless blood ancestor. He was considered half a Daoless blood ancestor. The supernatural organization's strength was above average in the world. However, this did not include Huaxia's supernatural world. The supernatural organization was nothing compared to the Huaxia supernatural community. It couldn't even cause a ripple. If the supernatural society was fighting on home soil, relying on the territory of Kong Mosa in the headquarters, they were basically not afraid of any enemy. Even if it was a super expert, they would be able to block it for at least half an hour. Qin Zhao would be able to make it in time. But in China, from the moment they set foot on this land, there were probably dozens of pairs of eyes staring at them. The supernatural organization dared to go against everything in the United States. Even a fart here would cause a misunderstanding. Guild leader, I beg you. Is that girl your illegitimate daughter? Is there a need for this? No, I have to keep my promise. If guild leader doesn't agree, I'll come here myself. I won't bring anyone else. I'll come alone. Fuck, Qin Zhao cursed inwardly. This old bastard also knew how to play this kind of trick. What did he mean? Wasn't he just saying that he was going to die? Fine. Tell me that sect. I'll think of something for you. You just stay in LA and don't go anywhere. Qin Zhao's face was filled with displeasure. He wanted to kill this old bastard when he got back. That sect is called Lian Shenzong. What's that? Qin Zhao couldn't understand West's authentic American pinyin translation. It's the sect that refined God's spirits, the God refinement sect. West tried his best to straighten his tongue and repeated himself. He also added his understanding. To be able to refine even a God spirit, this sect was pretty amazing. West had been scared by the name of the alchemy sect back then. He felt that it must be very powerful. Oh, it's the alchemy sect, right? Qin Zhao roughly understood. I'll find Zhang Tianyi to understand the situation first. I'll contact you if there's any news. Okay, West said hurriedly. It's best if Celestial Master Zhang can help. If Celestial Master Zhang could intervene, at least the girl's chances of survival would be very high. Hey old Zhang. Tell me, what do you need me to do? What's with your attitude? You cried and begged me. Now that it's over, you're going to turn against me? You're acting like a big shot in front of me? Huh. You have to have the attitude to ask for help. I wasn't arrogant in front of you back then, right? You must have something to ask of me. I'm not begging you. I'm planning to buy a few shops in the town at the foot of Dragon Tiger Mountain and clean up the scammers there. Can you give me some advice? Zhang Tianyi's face twitched. That's a special scenic area. Do you think you can buy it with money? Huh. You really can buy it with money. I'll call my assistant now and contact the local government. I'll invest $100 million. If 100 million isn't enough, I'll invest 1 billion. If 1 billion isn't enough, I'll invest 10 billion. In the future, I'll only accept Dragon Tiger Mountain Taoists. I'll treat them well and fiercely. Chase away all the Taoists from other places. Fuck, just say it. How can you be like this? You don't need me to beg you. I'm joking with you. Huh. Actually, I'm joking with you too. Hey, say it. What do you want? Do you know if there's anyone in the spiritual world who wants to harm me or my family? Zhang Tianyi shuddered violently. Qin Zhao, you're not joking with me, right? What do you think? I've never heard of this. Is it Zhang Ding's trusted aide? I had a feud with him in China. Did you forget the killer organization you wiped out? You mean the killer organization? No. Are you messing with me? I'm just reminding you that even though you killed the leader of the killer organization, there are still some who escaped. Then how can you be sure that it's not someone from the killer organization who wants to take revenge on me? How much do you think they love their organization? How much loyalty do you think they have? If you destroy the assassin organization, they can just change to another organization. If not, they can also change to another job. Is there a need to go against you? So you're sure it's not the killer organization? In other words, it's Zhang Ding who wants to harm me and my family. Chapter 2755. Actually, I don't think it's Zhang Ding. Why not? I think it's his doing. I didn't kill him last time and only disabled him. Looks like I'm too soft-hearted. Hearing that, Zhang Tianyi only wanted to chuckle. Soft-hearted? Spare his life. If that's the case, you might as well kill him. The entire Mao Mountain would thank your family. After all, if Zhang Ding died, they could also announce to the world that Zhang Daojun had passed away due to his illness. But now Zhang Ding only had his neck left. He couldn't even speak properly. The entire Mao Mountain was in an awkward situation. They could say that Zhang Ding was dead, but he was alive and well. They could avenge Zhang Ding, but no one responded. They could forget about Kunlun and Dragon Tiger Mountain. Even their own elders didn't support it. They couldn't beat them. It would be suicide if the old and the young attacked together. Moreover, the Mao Mountain wasn't peaceful either. A few sneaky people wanted to take advantage of the situation. They also wanted to be Daojun. The current Zhang Ding was a loner. Not to mention taking revenge for him. It was only because the Maoshan sect was merciful that they did not kill him. It couldn't be said that Zhang Ding couldn't be killed. It could only be said that it was infinitely close to zero. His neck is the only thing he can move now. How do you expect him to take revenge on you? Bite you to death with his mouth? He can't move. He must have an accomplice, right? He must have a trusted aide, right? He does have a son. Do you want to kill him? I can give you the address. Sure, I think it's most likely his son. Yes, his son is in the 3rd class of Spring Thunder Kindergarten. His name is Zhang Mingchun. He's 5 years old. Remember to tell me when you succeed. Going to a kindergarten to seek revenge? Was he tired of living? Are there any more reliable suspects? For example, Zhang Ding's sweetheart who loves him to death. After knowing what happened to him, she won't let me live under the same sky as her. His wife died a long time ago. He did have a few mistresses outside, but they were all one-night stands. He only had one offspring, so there is no suspect like you are hoping for. Accomplice? Trusted aide? He was completely paralyzed by you, and his forces have vanished along with him. In other words, it's not him? He's just trying to stir up some trouble. Do you think the entire Maoshan sect would agree to it? He's currently being held captive by the people of the Maoshan sect. The only reason he's still alive is because he still has value in being alive, not because of his identity, and certainly not because they want him to cause more trouble for the Maoshan sect. Alright, do you know the God Refining sect? God Refining sect? Wasn't that a 3rd or 4th-rate sect? I have some impression of it. Yo, Grand Celestial Master Zhang, you still have an impression of a 3rd or 4th-rate sect. You really have a photographic memory. I remember the Refining God sect because of the previous Battle of Holy Glory. The Refining God sect had participated once, and they were also active in the big event 20 years ago. However, the Refining God sect expert who was active in the big event killed a Demon Clan expert in a battle. Including him, the 28 cultivators who died in the battle. I was the one who recited the eulogy, so I have some impression. Zhang Tianyi paused and suddenly said, You're not suspecting that the Refining God sect has something to do with the surveillance of your wife and son, are you? The Refining God sect only has a few dozen disciples, and there isn't a single first-rate expert among them. I don't think they would get involved. Even if their subordinates dared to, their sect master wouldn't agree. Why wouldn't they agree? Qin Zhao didn't think that way at first, but he read another meaning in Zhang Tianyi's words. He didn't just have an impression of the Refining God sect. The fact that he could be so sure that the Refining God sect wouldn't cause trouble for him seemed to be a judgment made from a different perspective. Their sect master, Li Daming, is said to have been a farmer in his early years. He has a mellow personality, but of course in layman's terms he's honest and timid. The Refining God sect doesn't have many capable people, and the only one who looked good died 20 years ago. Therefore, the Refining God sect has always maintained a low profile. Do you know how low profile they are? How low profile? Once, a disciple of their sect caught a human trafficker and beat the human trafficker until he was crippled. In the end, Li Daming actually asked the disciple to turn himself in to the police station. In the end, the police were reasonable and didn't file a case. They even gave the disciple a banner for bravery. When I first heard this name, I didn't think it was a righteous sect. Even if it wasn't a big villain sect, it was at least a lowly one. Why do I feel that the Refining God sect master is a little too afraid of trouble? The only thing that's famous about them is the name of their sect. Anyone could be targeting you except for the Refining God sect. It's impossible even if Li Daming ate a bear's heart and leopard's gall. Alright, I've never suspected that the Refining God sect is targeting me and my family. Then why are you asking about the Refining God sect? How do you know about the Refining God sect that's hiding in this corner? There seems to be a change in the Immortal Refinement sect. The low-key and extraordinary Li Daming that you mentioned was killed by someone. Now his daughter is also being hunted. I was asked by someone to lend a helping hand and help his daughter. Is that so? Zhang Tianyi only frowned slightly. To him this was a small matter that didn't matter. There were hundreds of such incidents in the Huaxia spiritual world every year. There was nothing to be surprised about. Not to mention a small sect like the Refining God sect. Even a sacred Taoist sect like the Three Mountains had gone through a few changes of orthodoxy. Zhang Tianyi only felt that it was a pity that the good guy in the spiritual world was gone just like that. So what do you mean? Help me find the suspect and find out where Li Daming's daughter is. It's best if you can tell her to come find me. That way I won't have to look for her. Alright, I've met Li Daming once. If it's convenient, I'll help. Zhang Tianyi's attitude was similar to Qin Zhao's. If it's convenient. If there's nothing else, hurry up and scram. You're a scourge if you stay in the country. T when you begged me to come back as soon as possible. Now that I've used it, you're giving me a cold shoulder? You've helped me a lot, but you've also caused a lot of trouble. Besides, did you go to the Dragon Tiger Mountain's Heavenly Master Sex Library for free? Even if it's a brothel, you still have to pay. I let you eat there for free for 3 days and 3 nights. Isn't that enough? Next time you come to America, I'll find you an equal opponent. Then I'll invite you to the headquarters of the Supernatural Organization for a day tour. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. Chapter 2756. Qin Zhao wanted to go home as soon as possible. However, his family was being watched. Qin Zhao couldn't guarantee that the person wouldn't come after him even if he returned home. After all, most cultivators didn't feel guilty about causing trouble in North America. So, it was understandable if the cultivator came to North America to cause trouble. Moreover, once he went to North America, the cultivator or force watching him might be even more unscrupulous. After all, if they caused trouble in China, they might be invited for tea by the relevant departments. But in North America, Qin Zhao was the relevant department. After hanging up Zhang Tianyi's call, Qin Zhao thought about how to find the mastermind. He couldn't think of a way no matter how hard he thought. But he suddenly thought of Mo Han. Yes, professional work should be handled by professionals. Qin Zhao immediately called Mo Han. Old Mo, where are you? I'm still in Shanghai. Boss, what's up? My wife suspects that she and the child are being watched. How do we find out who's watching us? Mo Han thought about it. He didn't ask if they were really being watched or if it was an illusion. For cultivators, as long as there was a suspicion, it was confirmed. Regardless of whether they were being watched or not, they had to find out who it was. Boss, you can tell your employees that you're going back to Los Angeles tomorrow. Huh. You're suspecting my employees? Since the other party wants to deal with you, they'll naturally investigate your information, and it's not difficult to investigate your information in China. The other party is likely to obtain some of your information through your company's employees. So, boss, as long as you tell your employees that you're returning to Los Angeles tomorrow, the other party will definitely take action first. Are you sure they'll act first? Instead of waiting until we get to Los Angeles? It's the same in North America. Black-haired and black-eyed people are more likely to attract attention. There's an iron rule in the assassin world. Try not to go to other races to carry out missions. That's why the top assassin in Africa is a black man, the top assassin in Europe and the United States is a white man, and the top assassin in Asia is an Asian man. That's because the region has limited the isolation of the assassin industry. Mo Han paused for a moment, then said, moreover, if they rashly go to North America, it will be very difficult for them to get supplies there, and it will be very easy for them to expose their whereabouts. So, before you stay in China or on the plane, this is undoubtedly the best choice. Zhang Ting, inform my employees that I'm going back to Los Angeles tomorrow. We'll have dinner tonight. Boss, don't you have a flight in 2 days? Something cropped up, so I had to bring it forward. All right, I'll inform the staff. Zhang Ting didn't like Qin Zhao's crazy way of doing things. Could be said that he already had a certain level of immunity. Qin Zhao often went crazy when people came to him. But every time it was harmless and insignificant. So Zhang Ting quite liked Qin Zhao as a boss. That night, Qin Zhao held a big banquet. They ate and drank. The guests and the host enjoyed themselves to the fullest. After sending the employees of the animation company out of the hotel, Qin Zhao vaguely felt a gaze on him. It was very subtle, but it couldn't escape Qin Zhao's senses. However, Qin Zhao could only sense it. He couldn't find any traces of the person. The person probably wasn't monitoring him with his eyes. Qin Zhao analyzed in his mind. Qin Zhao returned to the hotel expressionlessly. The gaze also disappeared. This meant that the person was outside the hotel. It probably wasn't a surveillance device. It should be some kind of spell that could avoid Qin Zhao's shadow vision. However, it was also clear that the person was very powerful. At least in terms of surveillance, the person was definitely unparalleled. After Qin Zhao returned to the hotel, a blurry figure moved through the streets under the night sky. After a few turns, it disappeared into the city. Whoosh! A cool breeze whistled through the wilderness. The cool breeze brushed past a few figures. If Qin Zhao was here, he would realize that one of them was Qin Zhao, whom he'd met once before. The person who sent the message is back? He's back. He's planning to leave tomorrow and go back to America. He's leaving tomorrow. Zhou Yinan's expression changed. No, we have to act quickly. We'll do it tonight. No, we can't do it tonight. The other person immediately rejected Zhou Yinan's request. This person was one-eyed. His hair was messy and he wore loose clothes. However, his single eye flashed with a dangerous light. That's the city. If we attack there and can't subdue him instantly, we won't be able to escape the subsequent pursuit no matter how powerful we are, the one-eyed person said. We definitely can't do it in the city. Then he's leaving tomorrow. Do we have to chase him to America? Zhou Yinan said, unwilling to give up. No need for that. We can do it on the way to the airport. After all, most of the roads to the airport were in the suburbs. As long as they made proper arrangements, they could still find a chance. Remember, Zhou Yinan said solemnly. We can't fight him head-on. It's best if we can use his wife and children as a threat. After they parted at Hanwang Mountain, he didn't believe Wang Hai and Li Ku's words. Later he suddenly heard that Zhang Ding was seriously injured for no reason and then resigned from his position as Dao Lord and sect leader. He asked around and found out that it was Zhang Ding who had caused trouble outside. His enemies had even gone to the Mao Mountain Gate. The enemy had managed to escape unscathed. It was said that the enemy's surname was Qin. Zhou Yinan had been scared out of his wits. But he still remembered Qin Zhao. After all, that matter was too important to him. He had to take the risk. Fortunately, the people he found were all from the Five Elements sect. 2 of them were even from the Five Elements sect's inner sect. Not only were they powerful, but they also had extraordinary identities. They were many times more powerful than outer sect disciples like Zhou Yinan. Moreover, they didn't know the identity of the person they were dealing with. They only heard that Qin Zhao was rich. Under Zhou Yinan's encouragement, they joined in. Zhou Yinan had reminded them many times. Qin Zhao's cultivation was unfathomable. But he purposely hid the fact that Qin Zhao had once caused a ruckus in the Mao Mountain inner sect. That incident had caused a huge ruckus in Mao Mountain. Therefore, the impression they had was that Qin Zhao had some cultivation. He was the kind of person who wasn't as strong as the strong but was better than the weak. Chapter 2757. Zhou Yinan was afraid. If they found out, their target would be his glorious achievements. They would directly turn their guns and take him down first. Old Lai, continue to use your breeze guide to monitor the target. The one-eyed dragon looked at a middle-aged man. This man had a dejected face. No matter how you looked at him, he looked dispirited. His clothes were crooked and torn, and he had stubble on the side of his mouth. Although Old Lai looked insignificant, his strength was second only to the one-eyed dragon among the people present. He was also an outer sect disciple of the Five Element sect, but his cultivation was a bit stronger than the other inner sect disciple of the Five Element sect. On the other hand, he had brought his skills into the sect and he had many unique skills. This breeze guide was one of them. This breeze guide was like a breeze that led into a dream. The spring rain was silent. A cool breeze blew past and everything became clear without a trace. Therefore, the person being monitored had no idea at all. Old Lai sat on the ground in a dispirited manner. He silently raised his head and glanced at everyone. The wind tells me that I shouldn't have gotten involved. That person is very fierce. If we continue to go against him, our lives will be in danger. There is no way out of this. Zhou Yinan looked at Old Lai in dissatisfaction. He was blaming him for disturbing the morale of the army at this critical moment. However, Old Lai didn't care about Zhou Yinan's gaze. He was feeling depressed. The information he received wasn't as simple as a little danger. Breeze Guide wasn't omnipotent, but it could allow the caster to avoid most dangers to a certain extent. Now Breeze Guide had made Old Lai feel danger. And this danger wasn't present in the past. This trip would definitely be filled with death. However, it was impossible for these people to let him go. After all, everyone was on the same boat. If anyone wanted to go ashore alone, they would be going against everyone. You don't have to say that anymore. The one-eyed dragon looked at Old Lai with a hint of warning. That's all I have to say. Old Lai said decisively. Black monk, on the way to the airport, can you find a chance to attack? The one-eyed dragon looked at a monk in a black robe. This monk had a fat head and big ears. His face was red and he looked like a monk who drank and ate meat. He wasn't a disciple of the Five Element sect, but he could be considered to be birds of a feather with the one-eyed dragon. Furthermore, his cultivation was not weak, and he also had the special Dharma spells of the Buddhist sect. That was why they had invited this black-hearted monk for this operation. My one-leaf Bodhi technique can allow their chariots to enter the Brahma sacred realm without anyone noticing. Dragon Skeleton, you're in charge of holding that person back. I don't expect you to defeat him, just hold him back for 3 minutes. Humph. Dragon Skeleton snorted in dissatisfaction. I didn't join you just to hold them back for 3 minutes. Long Ben was extremely confident in his cultivation. He believed that he was not weaker than anyone else. Of course, he had the right to be arrogant. He had cultivated a peerless cultivation technique and had a fortuitous encounter when he was young. He rarely had a match among his peers, and he had never tasted defeat among those of the same level. He had also seen the target's information. Their ages were about the same as his. In his opinion, no matter how strong the other party's cultivation was, it couldn't be that strong. Could it be that the other party was stronger than him? In his opinion, there was no need to go through so much trouble. In the face of absolute power, all schemes and plots were nothing more than laughable tricks. Therefore, Dragon Skeleton felt that he should just charge into the hotel and take control of that person and his wife and children. Unfortunately, his teammates were a bunch of cowards. They were also overcautious when doing things and did not dare to act so directly. The one-eyed man's gaze landed on the woman in red. Zhu Hongyi, read our fortune. Great calamity, the woman in red replied coldly. Everyone furrowed their brows. Zhu Hongyi was a descendant of the Zhuge clan, but the Zhuge clan had always been passed down to males and not females. Even the surname was not allowed to be passed down to females. Zhu Hongyi was dissatisfied with the clan's tradition. That was why she abandoned her clan and joined the Five Elements sect. She even became an inner disciple of the Five Elements sect. Although she had abandoned the Zhuge clan, she still inherited the flawless divination, the Zhuge clan's strongest technique. The flawless divination was the Zhuge clan's secret technique. Could see the past, the future, and see through the stars. Is there a way to break it? There is, but I'll have to cripple all of your cultivations and use your blood as a medium. I'll be able to find a way to break it. Everyone's expressions did not look too good. What kind of joke is this? You want us to cripple all of our cultivations and read your fortune? The dragon skeleton had a fiery temper. He cursed loudly. I think you're up to no good. Zhu Hongyi glanced at the dragon skeleton, then looked away and did not speak. Some people did not believe it, but others did. Zhou Yinan knew that Qin Zhao's cultivation was unfathomable. He naturally believed Zhu Hongyi's words. However, he already knew that this trip would not bode well. Thus he did not hesitate at all. The other person who believed it was old rogue. He had already received Qingfeng's guidance and had some understanding. Zhu Hongyi's words only confirmed his suspicions. Since this trip is so dangerous, why don't we just give up? Giving up is even more dangerous. We'll die for sure, Zhu Hongyi said calmly. Zhu Hongyi calmly said, that person will definitely seek revenge for the smallest grievance. As long as that person senses even the slightest movement, there's no chance of us surviving. He's just a fake foreigner. Why should we be afraid of him? The black monk said nonchalantly. These cultivators believed in fate, but they would not fear it. They were all people who believed that they could go against the heavens. They believed in the results of Zhu Hongyi's divination. However, they were also extremely confident in what they had learned. They thought that they could use their spells to change the situation. However, if they did not have such confidence, they would have long since rotted away in an alley or in the wilderness. However, Zhu Hongyi's words cast a shadow over their hearts. The situation did not seem to be as perfect as they had expected. All the plans had been carried out according to plan. The only problem was that the target was much stronger than they had expected. At least, Zhu Hongyi's divination had explained the situation. Let's stick to the plan, the one-eyed dragon said. At the same time, he turned to look at Zhu Hongyi. Hongyi, according to the plan, you have to set up an ultimate formation to trap that person. Are you confident? No, Zhu Hongyi said honestly. But I'll do my best. Alright, let's stick to the plan. The one-eyed dragon did not ask for more. It was enough that he could do his best. There was actually another meaning in Zhu Hongyi's words. Only the one-eyed dragon could tell. After all, they were the most familiar with each other. They were both from the inner sect of the Five Elements sect. They were not just disciples in name. In fact, they had a previous relationship, so it was not as simple as knowing each other. What Zhu Hongyi meant was that if things did not go according to plan, she would take care of herself. Chapter 2758. After everyone's discussion, Cyclops and Zhu Hongyi separated themselves from the crowd. The two of them were alone. Hongyi, do you think that person already knows about this? According to my divination, that person's cultivation is unfathomable. I have divined no less than 1,000 times, but this time the divination says that autumn leaves are sharp and cold, winter snow can't cover 10,000 feet of ice, crimson clouds can't shake the 10 heavenly demons, 8 desolates won't be able to escape. This divination is extremely dangerous. Sharp, cold, snow and ice all describe this person's Buddha blood hand. This means that this person kills people like flies. As for the last 2 lines, crimson clouds are the righteous ones, which refers to us all. 10 is perfection and the 10 heavenly demons are supreme devils. This means that with our cultivation, it will be difficult for us to fight against that peerless demon. 8 desolates won't be able to escape. This means that this person already has killing intent towards us, and it will be difficult for us to escape. Since he's already sensed it and has terrifying power, then we can only, don't say it. It's hard to understand. If you say it, you'll be sensed by it. Just keep your plan to yourself. Zhu Hongyi waved her hand, stopping Cyclops. Cyclops nodded slightly. If it's really impossible, just think of a way to leave. I know without you telling me. The next day Chen Zhao stood at the side and looked at the large suitcases that filled up a truck. They were loading the suitcases into the second truck. When they came, each person had about 2 suitcases. But when they left, they had more than 100 suitcases. With so many things, it would be impossible not to charter a plane. Zhang Ting and Yi Ziqing stood beside Chen Zhao and said their goodbyes. Boss, let's go to the airport. Forget it. With you guys, I'll have to rent another car. Chen Zhao looked at Yi Ziqing. Oh, when can I sign the contract for the house I want? About half a month after the paperwork, the house will be yours, boss. Okay, I'll have the agent come back to sign it. After a few more words, the suitcases were all loaded into the car. Chen Zhao also got into the car with his family. As soon as Chen Zhao left, 2 old men in Chinese tunics walked into the hotel. They were both inner elders of the 5-element sect. Their powers were unfathomable. Chen Zhao sat on the chair behind the driver. He glanced at the scenery behind the kingdom of perpetual peace. As soon as the car got on the highway, a thick fog appeared. Damn, why is it so foggy today? The weather forecast didn't report it. The driver yelled, Boss, when is your flight? Don't rush, Chen Zhao said calmly. Drive slowly. So foggy. Don't let anything happen. Oh, okay. Such a big fog on a highway like this is really troublesome. However, the fog was not thick. After a few minutes, the car drove out of the fog area. What's going on? Where is this? The driver was dumbfounded. How did they get off the highway? Although it was foggy just now, he didn't see any crossroads. How did I get off the highway for no reason? The driver got out of the car to check the situation. But there didn't seem to be anyone around. Mr. Driver, please come back, Chen Zhao reminded him. But as soon as Chen Zhao finished, the driver's vision darkened and he fell to the ground. Chen Zhao glanced at his family and got out of the car. Come out, Chen Zhao said calmly. It's already like this. There's no point in hiding anymore. Just then a few figures charged toward Chen Zhao. Hiss! When those figures landed on the ground, Lin Fan's eyes widened. They had already turned into corpses. Chen Zhao's fist was dripping blood. Come out. A few small fries are meaningless. Just then a few more figures appeared in the distance. Cyclops, Zhou Yinan, Lao Lai, the Black Monk, Zhu Hongyi and Dragon Skeleton appeared one by one. Everyone's expression was serious, including the arrogant Dragon Skeleton. The 6 people who had died in Chen Zhao's hands were cannon fodder they'd hired. They'd done it to test Chen Zhao's strength and also to waste some of Chen Zhao's mana. Although they were cannon fodder, they weren't weak. At the very least, not a single one of them could fight 6 enemies at once. But these 6 experts were instantly killed by Chen Zhao. From this, it was clear how terrifying Chen Zhao was. Even the slightly arrogant Long Ben had to admit that the man before him was truly a fiendish star. Follow the plan, Cyclops said in a low voice. Dragon Skeleton, you stall him. Zhu Hongyi. Got it. Zhu Hongyi nodded. At this moment the Dragon Skeleton was starting to lose confidence. But he still stood before Chen Zhao bravely. But before he attacked, he told his companions, "Hurry up. I might not be able to stall him for long." Originally, he'd thought that he could defeat his opponent alone. But now he felt that if he could stall Qin Zhao for 5 minutes, it would be a victory for him. Qin Zhao was strong. Very strong. "I'll give you a chance to attack," Qin Zhao said calmly. At the same time he looked at Zhou Yinan. Meeting Qin Zhao's gaze, Zhou Yinan was frightened, but he forced himself to be calm. Ever since they'd met, they hadn't talked to each other. But everyone knew that this encounter wouldn't be friendly. Dragon's skeleton roared and crimson steam burst out of his body. At the same time he released a vast aura, as if the power of heaven and earth had been added to his body. The aura also made Qin Zhao look away temporarily. The aura of the dragon skeleton was somewhat strange. It wasn't because he was strong, but because the aura on the dragon skeleton carried some kind of power. It didn't seem like he'd cultivated it himself. It was more like something he'd obtained later on. If this power was complete, it might even be stronger than him. But the dragon skeleton before him could only add 1/1000th of it to his body. This power wasn't enhanced by evil arts or forbidden arts. It was more like a small part of a powerful existence that had been stripped off. In an instant, the dragon skeleton's aura had expanded 100 times. The dragon skeleton suddenly charged at Qin Zhao, turning into a bolt of red lightning. With a single step, the ground cracked and flew everywhere. With unparalleled power, it seemed like it was going to smash Qin Zhao with one punch. The others followed suit. But they weren't attacking Qin Zhao together. Each of them had their own mission. They needed to complete their mission while the dragon skeleton could still hold on. Qin Zhao looked at the dragon skeleton that wanted to fight him head-on. Bang! The ground cracked and the dragon skeleton lay on the ground. His chest was completely caved in and it spat out blood. An instant. Just an instant. The outcome was clear. Just as everyone wanted to move, they froze. Didn't they say they could last for a few minutes? Chapter 2759. The dragon skeleton wasn't dead. But it was almost there. Blood was bubbling up from the dent in the dragon skeleton's chest. Then it attached to Qin Zhao's fist. Qin Zhao easily extracted the dragon skeleton's essence blood. It didn't seem to be his own. It was more like an existence with even greater vitality and power. It had fused a drop of its own essence blood into the dragon skeleton's body. But the two didn't come from the same source. So, the dragon skeleton could only use a tiny bit of the power in the essence blood. Even so, it still made the dragon skeleton's essence blood reach a superhuman level. Qin Zhao had estimated that the owner of this drop of essence blood was no weaker than him in terms of blood energy. In fact, it was much stronger. As for cultivation and combat ability, it should be on the same level as him. But the difference in combat ability could only be determined after a fight. On the other hand, the dragon skeleton was as far away from Qin Zhao as the Pacific Ocean. Qin Zhao just put away the drop of essence blood. He would study it when he had the chance in the future. At the moment, Cyclops, Zhou Yinan, Old Lai, the Black Monk and Zhu Hongyi. They only felt a chill. Killing the dragon skeleton with one move. This ability couldn't be described as powerful. The one-eyed man gulped. Because Qin Zhao's gaze landed on him. Without saying anything, Cyclops opened his arms wide. Golden wood array rise. Huge golden logs rose from the ground before Qin Zhao and Cyclops. The golden logs gave off a majestic aura. It was as if each log was a terrifying cultivator. This was Cyclops' ultimate skill. He came from the 5-element sect and was an inner sect disciple. This golden wood array was a secret of the 5-element sect. As long as he used this skill, even if there were 10 times more cultivators, they would still be suppressed by this chaotic metal wood array. Pop! Suddenly, a black ball the size of a marble shot into Cyclops' chest. In the path of the little black ball, all of the giant golden trees were instantly broken and sent flying. Cyclops cried out and spat out a mouthful of blood. His chest had been pierced by the black ball. However, this kind of penetrative damage saved his life. Even though there was a bowl-sized hole in his chest, he didn't die immediately. Although he didn't die, he had no more strength to fight. The strongest two, the Cyclops and the skeleton dragon, were both defeated by Qin Zhao's attack. This cast a shadow over the hearts of everyone present. But just then the bus behind him suddenly sank into the ground. Fei Lai and the kids were still in the bus. However, Qin Zhao did not panic because of this. He only looked at Zhu Hongyi, who was casting the spell. Origin returning burial. Zhu Hongyi shouted. All of a sudden, a wave of soil appeared around the tour bus, directly covering it. Qin Zhao raised his right arm and aimed his palm at Zhu Hongyi. Zhu Hongyi felt his scalp go numb. He shouted, "Stop. If you kill me, your family will be buried with me." Qin Zhao's expression was still indifferent. "Do you really think this little trick will work on me?" Qin Zhao stared coldly at Zhu Hongyi and the others. Zhu Hongyi stared at Qin Zhao and her nervous expression suddenly relaxed. Looks like my guess was right. Those in the car are just illusions. Your family isn't in the car at all." Zhu Hongyi looked at Qin Zhao, her eyes filled with understanding. It was as if she had already guessed this outcome. "So, your threat is meaningless. Even if you drag the bus into hell, it's useless, let alone dragging it into the ground. We indeed can't do anything to you, but someone else can." Zhu Hongyi looked at Qin Zhao. Zhu Hongyi glanced at the Cyclops on the ground and growled, "If you're not dead, get up." The Cyclops suddenly opened his eyes and climbed up with difficulty. The wound on his chest was healing at a visible speed. Qin Zhao was somewhat surprised. The Cyclops' cultivation was top-notch, but his qi and blood were only slightly stronger than ordinary people. How did he do it? He could actually escape death and heal his wounds so quickly. Qin Zhao had to admit that after returning to Huaxia, he realized that there were too many surprising spells here. For example, Qin Zhao could not tell the origin of the Cyclops' healing spell. Of course, the Cyclops was not naive enough to think that he could really turn the tables. The difference in combat ability between the two was too great. However, the Cyclops seemed to have predicted this situation long ago. Nevertheless, Qin Zhao's strength was indeed beyond everyone's expectations. Although this situation was already within his expectations, he did not expect it. However, he did not think that he would lose so completely. This was all within his plan. They would at least struggle a few times. However, Qin Zhao had defeated their naive thoughts. The result was no different from what they had expected. However, the process was not so pleasant. "Sir, you're indeed unbelievably strong, but it's meaningless. We still won in the end." Qin Zhao laughed. "Which eye of yours saw you win? Do you think that you won just because you didn't die after taking one of my attacks?" The Cyclops looked at Qin Zhao. "It's useless for you to beat us here because your family is already in our hands. Are you just trying to be mysterious?" Qin Zhao said calmly. "Be more direct. I'll give you a chance to take out your trump card. Maybe you'll have a chance to live." "Actually, I already knew that you wouldn't be so easy to deal with. I also knew that you just wanted to bait us. Your family must still be in the hotel, so I invited 2 seniors from my sect to go to the hotel. I'm sure they've succeeded by now. Even if you kill us now, it's useless. As long as your family is still in the hands of my seniors, you've lost this round. Then I'll tell you a very unfortunate piece of news. I've always been cautious. If I can't guarantee the safety of my family, I won't let them out of my sight," Qin Zhao said calmly. "So I've also invited 3 experts to protect my family. The people you invited might not be able to stop my 2 martial uncles. They are elders of our 5 Elements sect, and both of them have already touched upon the realm of the legend of eternity. You should have them deal with me directly. At least that way your chances of winning would be higher. You shouldn't have to deal with my family. After all, you don't have an advantage in combat. Now you have to deal with 3 more experts. More importantly, you've already angered me. My 2 uncles are famous people. They won't deal with a junior like you. Oh, then dealing with ordinary people and children is a very honorable thing to do, right? All's fair in war. You better contact your uncles and see if they're still alive. Divine Emperor of the 9 Heavens." Chapter 2760. Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexin entered the hotel directly. They already knew the floor and room number of the target. To them, this place was completely defenseless. Of course, it was the same for everyone. After all, the hotel was a public area. When they reached the floor, Lu Xing pointed at the end of the corridor. "It's there. I can already sense that woman's aura and a few kids' auras." Both of them were very confident in their abilities. Walking to the door, Zhang Tiexin tapped on the doorknob. Crack. The electronic door lock was unlocked. The 2 pushed the door open. But the moment they pushed the door open, their expressions froze. Because they saw the existence of someone other than their target. Apart from this target, there were 3 other people. Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexing recognized 2 of them. Zhang Tianyi, the Heavenly Master of Dragon Tiger Mountain's Heavenly Master Sect. The 23rd Blood Mary, the current Blood Mary of the Scarlet Church. They didn't know the other person. He looked unfamiliar. He was in his 30s. His clothes and face looked like someone from Central Asia. The 3 were playing landlord at the moment. Their status probably wasn't low. Sorry, wrong door. Just as the 2 of them were about to leave, their bodies were suddenly pushed into the room by a huge force. Bang, then the door behind him closed. Since you're here, don't leave, Zhang Tianyi said with his back facing them. Right, K. I can't afford it. Pass. Pass. 910JQK. It's a straight. I win. Zhang Tianyi threw out his cards proudly. Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexing broke out in cold sweat. They froze on the spot, not daring to move. This foreigner's family knew the 3 players of Landlord? I say you're really bold. Zhang Tianyi turned back to look at Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexing. Heavenly Master. We made a mistake. Zhang Tianyi waved his hand. You don't have to explain to me. You're not targeting me. You just have to explain to the victim. Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexing looked at Fei Lai. He was sitting next to them reading a Taoist book. As if sensing Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexing's gazes, she put down her book and said in fluent Mandarin, You don't have to explain anything to me. I'm not from the supernatural world and I won't decide your life or death. Let's wait for my husband to come back first. Their moods once again fell to the bottom of the valley. After all, they were invited here by their descendants. Naturally, he also knew the detailed plans of his juniors. Fei Lai said that she would wait for Qin Zhao to come back before making a decision. The 2 of them doubted whether her husband would be able to return. If she knew that her husband had been ambushed by her own juniors. He wondered how she would feel if she was killed. He didn't know if this woman could invite the 3 players of Fight the Landlord. Those 2. Baifla glanced at the 2 of them. I really admire your courage. At least I don't have the courage to plot against that guy's family. After hearing Baifla's words, Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexing became more flurried. He seemed to have provoked someone he shouldn't have and done something he shouldn't have. But who was the other party? He had heard from his juniors that he was just a rich man. Furthermore, he lived abroad all year round. Therefore, they didn't take it to heart at all. However, was this just a rich man? If he was just rich, then what was up with Celestial Master Zhang and the 23rd Blood Mary? If they were playing Fight the Landlord here, it meant that they were very familiar with this family. The last sect that provoked Qin Zhao had their leader paralyzed, Zhang Tianyi said. By the way, that sect is the Maoshan sect. The one who provoked Qin Zhao is called Zhang Ding. Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexing were instantly covered in sweat. Only now did they know that the person they had to deal with was called Qin Zhao. But they weren't unfamiliar with the Maoshan sect, let alone the name Zhang Ding. Apparently, Zhang Ding's old injuries had relapsed recently and he had already resigned from his position as the Taoist and leader. Actually, many people in the spiritual world had guessed this. But if the Maoshan sect didn't say anything, they wouldn't be able to find out. Now Zhang Tianyi had personally explained the reason. This scared the 2 of them out of their wits. The 5 Elements sect wasn't as powerful as the Maoshan sect. If the leader knew that they had caused such a disaster for the 5 Elements sect, they wondered if he would skin them alive. Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexing looked at each other. Should we risk it? How? Celestial Master Zhang and the 23rd Blood Mary. Who can you beat? No, I mean we should take advantage of the chaos to escape. Lu Xing sent a telepathic message to Zhang Tiexing. If you and I attack the foreign woman and the kid in the house at the same time, those 3 will definitely come to their rescue. We can use the opportunity to escape. Zhang Tiexing scanned the environment in the house. He was also a bit tempted by Lu Xing's suggestion. Just as he was about to agree, Zhang Tianyi spoke. You better behave. If any of the furniture here is damaged, Qin Zhao will send a bill to the 5 Elements sect and make you pay 1,000 times over. Don't doubt how evil that guy is. Also, are you sure you can do it yourselves? Baifla said calmly. Suddenly, Lu Xing and Zhang Tiexing felt an invisible force binding them. This shocked the 2 of them, but not because of Baifla's methods. After all, since he could play landlord with Zhang Tianyi and the 23rd Blood Mary, his status wasn't much lower than theirs. He definitely wasn't weak either. What they were truly shocked about was that Baifla and Zhang Tianyi both knew the content of their telepathic messages. Telepathic spells were actually similar to radios. As long as it was a private channel, no one else could hear it. Telepathic was also a rather advanced spell. Not many people knew about it, so this method of communication was relatively convenient and safe. Unfortunately, the three people they were facing all had decoders. Unless they used a password to communicate, no matter how they changed the channel, it would be like a public chat to Zhang Tianyi, the 23rd Blood Mary, and Bifla. Just then Lu Xing's phone rang. But Lu Xing was currently bound. He couldn't pick up at all. So the phone stopped after a few rings. Then Zhang Tianxi's phone rang. Zhang Tianxi's restraint was suddenly undone. "Pick up," Zhang Tianyi said. When Zhang Tianxin saw the caller ID, he was instantly enraged. It was his disciple's nephew, the one-eyed man who'd brought them to this trap. Fuck. Zhang Tianxin thought that he was very cultured. At least he wouldn't use this curse even once in 10 years. But this time he really couldn't hold it in. Chapter 2761. Cyclops was dumbfounded. Why did Uncle Zhang scold him as soon as he made the call? I didn't offend him, right? Cyclops was frustrated, but Zhang Tianxin and Lu Xing were even more frustrated. We've doted on you a lot. Who knew that you and Ingrate would actually trick the two of us like this? Zhang Tianxin and Lu Xing didn't know what was going on with Cyclops. But he definitely wouldn't be worse than them. After all, he was facing Celestial Master Zhang and the 23rd Blood Mary. Both of them were peerless experts who were unrivaled in the world. They could summon the wind and rain with just a wave of their hands. Usually, if one wanted to become enemies with any of them, they would have to swallow the bear's heart and leopard's gall first. Now that they were facing them together, they could basically tell their families to prepare for their funeral. Resist? Stop joking. As for the other three, let's not talk about the Central Asian first. The other two had already made them give up on resisting. At least they could just lie down and wait for death. Come back right now and explain everything to me. I'm dead because of you. Zhang Tianxin and Lu Xing just wanted Cyclops to come back and explain the misunderstanding no matter what. Of course, they didn't know Cyclops' current situation. At this moment, how could the one-eyed man not understand that the martial uncle and martial uncle he invited had obviously failed in their mission? Cyclops looked at Qin Zhao. He didn't know what was going on with Zhang Tianxin and Lu Xing. However, from the tone of the martial uncle and martial uncle, it was obvious that they were in big trouble. Sir, it's our fault. Can you let us go? If you need us in the future, we'll go through fire and water for you. Cyclops also knew that their mission had completely failed. Whether it was the martial uncle's side or his side. Brother Qin. Zhou Yinan looked at Qin Zhao with an ugly expression. Qin Zhao only glared at Zhou Yinan from a dozen meters away. In an instant, everyone felt a terrifying sense of oppression pass by in front of them. Then Zhou Yinan spat out a mouthful of blood. At the same time, his dantian caved in. Everyone felt like their scalps were going to explode. Zhou Yinan had been crippled with one look? What kind of monster did Zhou Yinan ask them to deal with? Zhou Yinan fell to the ground and propped up his arms with difficulty. You crippled my cultivation? What? You found people to deal with me and my family. Is it too much for me to destroy your cultivation? Zhou Yinan's eyes were filled with hatred. That's the look in his eyes. Qin Zhao hooked his finger. Zhou Yinan was lifted into the air by an invisible force and pulled in front of him. Qin Zhao dug out Zhou Yinan's eyeballs with his fingers. My eyes. My eyes. Zhou Yinan howled and waved his hand at Qin Zhao. Hiss! Zhou Yinan's arms flew into the air. Everyone felt a chill down their spine. This man was too savage. Killing someone was but a nod of the head. But he did it in such a cruel way. He crippled Zhou Yinan's cultivation and gouged out his eyes. Now he had even removed his arms. It was simply the behavior of a devil. The one-eyed dragon and Zhu Hongyi had ugly expressions on their faces. Lai Lai and the black monk's expressions turned even uglier. They all had their own missions. But now it seemed that there was no need for any missions. If he couldn't win, he had no chance of winning at all. They hadn't just underestimated their opponent's strength. They'd also underestimated his savagery. The one-eyed dragon had wanted to use the 5-element sect to threaten Qin Zhao. But now he decided not to say it out loud. The devil before him probably didn't care whether he was from the 5-element sect or the 10-element sect. In the end, Qin Zhao tossed Zhou Yinan to the ground like he was throwing away trash. He didn't die, but it was worse than death. Qin Zhao called Zhang Tianyi. How many people did you catch? 2, Zhang Tianyi answered. Send them all to me, Qin Zhao requested. What do you want? Revenge. What else can I do? Killing someone is but a nod of the head. There's no need to go too far. When did I go too far? I've only killed one person until now. Look, I've been cultivating my mind recently, right? When the others heard Qin Zhao's words, they only wanted to laugh. You've been cultivating your mind and temperament for nothing, haven't you? Soon Zhang Tianyi, 23rd Blood Mary, and Bifla brought Zhang Tiexin and Lu Xing over. Zhang Tiexin and Lu Xing's faces darkened. When Cyclops and the others saw Zhang Tianyi and 23rd Blood Mary arrive, their expressions were rather interesting. No wonder Zhang Tiexin started cursing when he picked up Cyclops' call. If it was anyone else, they would be lucky if they didn't crawl through the phone line. Cyclops and the others were even more flustered now. Qin Zhao had invited both of them. It was clear that he had a powerful background. A mere 5 elements sect probably wouldn't be able to scare him at all. Right now they hated Zhou Yinan even more. This asterisk shoal had definitely hidden a lot of information from them. If they knew their target would have eyes and ears everywhere, they definitely wouldn't have done this. This wasn't a deal at all. It was a pit of fire, okay? To protect his wife and child, he brought out the number 1 and number 2 in the world. Didn't he think too highly of our uncles and aunts? Anyway, Cyclops and the others had already lost their temper because of Qin Zhao. They couldn't beat Qin Zhao or escape anyway. They could only resign themselves to fate. All of you fight in front of me, Qin Zhao said. The winner can leave alive, but there's only one spot. Kid, I'm not your puppet, Lu Xing shouted. Even if I fall into your hands, I won't let you do whatever you want. Puff. Qin Zhao punched through the air and Lu Xing died on the spot. Okay, 1 out, Qin Zhao said calmly. Zhang Tiexin gritted his teeth and stared at Qin Zhao. But he was also shocked by Qin Zhao's strength. How did this guy cultivate? He killed Lu Xing with a punch through the air? This level of strength was unheard of. He also wanted to be as tough as Lu Xing. But Qin Zhao clearly didn't fall for it. That kind of unreasonable attitude and that kind of terrifying strength. He didn't give them any chance at all. That girl is from the Zhuge family? Zhang Tianyi's gaze suddenly landed on Zhu Hongyi. What, you want me to go easy on her? No need, I'm just a bit surprised. Zhang Tianyi shook his head. When Zhu Hongyi heard Zhang Tianyi's words, she'd been a bit disappointed. Unfortunately, Zhang Tianyi didn't plan on helping her and left her to fend for herself. Celestial Master, Celestial Master. I'm Ergui, do you still remember me? Lao Lai suddenly waved his hand and shouted. I'm your nephew. Shut up. Zhang Tianyi had recognized Lao Lai long ago. He didn't expect that his nephew would be involved in such a matter. Chapter 2762. Lao Lai's real name was Zhang Gui, and he was the second son in the family. Therefore his family also called him Heir Gui. Old Lai's Zhang family was considered a rather famous family in the spirit world. He could be considered to be famous. Although it wasn't a millennium family. But occasionally there would be a few people with relatively resounding names. Although Zhang Tianyi had entered the Celestial Master sect of Mount Longhu since he was young, he was not a Celestial Master. However, he had always admitted that he was from the South Tumzhang clan. There was no melodramatic drama. Back then, Zhang Tianyi's eldest brother inherited the family business. On the other hand, he joined the Celestial Master sect of Mount Longhu. But ever since his elder brother passed away, he didn't have much contact with the Southern Tumzhang clan. When she returned home once in a while, it was as if she had returned home in glory. Over time, Zhang Tianyi himself didn't want to walk anymore. The house was still the same, but the people were no longer the people of the past. However, every time they returned, the South Tumzhang clan would still bring a group of juniors to Zhang Tianyi. Even if he didn't ask him to take care of them, he should at least recognize them. If they met on the street in the future, he wouldn't be plastered to the wall by Zhang Tianyi. Lao Lai was a familiar junior that Zhang Tianyi recognized. Zhang Tianyi also had a certain understanding of Lao Lai. He was the grandson of his elder brother. If it was any other occasion, Zhang Tianyi didn't mind exchanging a few words with Lao Lai. But on this occasion, Zhang Tianyi wished he could kill Lao Lai himself. Old Zhang, is he your relative? You can say that he's under my protection, Zhang Tianyi said. Take him away. Zhang Tianyi still had to give him face. Zhang Tianyi looked at Lao Lai. Get over here. Lao Lai lowered his head and trotted behind Zhang Tianyi, not daring to raise his head. Qin Zhao glanced at Cyclops and the others. What, you're not going to start? Since you're not willing to accept my arrangements, there's no need for you to stay. But at that moment, Zhang Tianyi's body turned into a puddle of mud. The corners of Zhang Tianyi's mouth curled up slightly as he said indifferently, the 5 elements sex stewing technique. It's similar to the substitution spell. You can replace the objects around you with your original body and get out of the opponent's sight. The 23rd generation Blood Mary also saw through the essence of this spell. For people of their level, this kind of magic was no secret at all. Of course, it was the same in Qin Zhao's eyes. Perhaps Qin Zhao could not decipher the method of casting the spell. However, the entire process of Zhang Tianyi casting the spell was under Qin Zhao's nose. Since you like to hide, then don't ever come out. Qin Zhao snorted. Qin Zhao lifted his foot and stomped. Everyone could feel it. A terrifying energy burst out from the bottom of his feet. This energy followed the ground and rushed towards a mound of earth 100 meters away. Then the mound suddenly collapsed. A hole in the ground was exposed. Magma was boiling in that hole. Everybody knew that Zhang Tianyi was doomed. He didn't even have the time to scream. It looked like an ordinary attack. But this kind of attack was unheard of. First of all, the distance of 100 meters was enough to make people despair. Even if any of them turned around and ran as fast as they could, they would not be able to escape. It would be difficult to escape more than 100 meters in 10 seconds. But Qin Zhao could instantly kill someone from 100 meters away. Moreover, this kind of attack could not be blocked or avoided at all. This made them feel even more hopeless. Whoosh. If you want to dodge his attack, you better know elemental spells, Blood Mary said. The 23rd Blood Mary said, most of his combat power is on the physical level. Of course, Blood Mary didn't purposely expose Qin Zhao's weakness. She just wanted to see what tricks these people could play against Qin Zhao. Don't even think about escaping through the air. This guy can fly faster than the most advanced aircraft in the world. Even if you ask him to fly to the moon, he can still do it. Bifla reminded some of the people who were trying to escape with their temporary flight ability. After being reminded by Bifla, someone's expression darkened. This is not fun at all, Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said, the gap between your strength is too big. Why don't we change the rules of the game? Whoever can last 30 seconds in front of that guy, I'll let you live. Qin Zhao did not object. The others all had different expressions. 30 seconds? 10 seconds, Blood Mary said. Qin Zhao, what do you think? You think they can last 1 second? Qin Zhao asked, unconcerned. Then I'll make a restriction for you. You can't use your territory or telekinesis. If you use those two, it'll be useless even if you shorten the time to 0.01 seconds. Bifla, Zhang Tianyi, and Blood Mary were all pessimistic about Cyclops and the others. Cyclops and the others were a bit unhappy. But at least they had hope, right? Zhou Yinan wasn't dead yet, but he was close. So it didn't matter if he participated or not. Dragon Skeleton was long dead. He was the most pitiful one. At first he'd confidently thought that he could fight Qin Zhao evenly. Then he'd thought that he could stall Qin Zhao for a few minutes. And then, he used his actions to prove how naive he was. As for Lao Ai, he had Zhang Tianyi as his backer. So he didn't need to play this game. Thus the only ones who were truly in danger were the one-eyed dragon Zhu Hongyi and the black monk. The three of them were bitter and they were filled with regret at this moment. Who would have thought that the switch between the hunter and the prey would be so unexpected? They weren't prey at all. They were more like Godzilla. May I ask if your conditions are real? The black monk asked, stepping forward. If I don't die for 10 seconds, I can leave? Yes. Zhang Tianyi looked at Qin Zhao. Sure. You think you can last 10 seconds? Qin Zhao couldn't tell what was so special about this fat monk in a black kasaya. I have some special spells, but I need some time to activate them. The black monk looked at Qin Zhao. He felt that if he had enough time to activate the spell, he could definitely survive for 10 seconds. In that case, protecting himself for 10 seconds would not be a problem. Don't tell me half an hour. You're not worth it. Don't tell me it'll take half an hour. You're not worth half an hour or more waiting time. Okay, 3 minutes. You can activate your spell now. The black monk made a blue finger gesture with his right hand. Red, gold, and black threads of light shot out of his body. The threads didn't dissipate. Instead they kept shuttling through the black monk's body. The black Kasaya was like an inflated balloon expanding to its limit. The black Kasaya also expanded to its limit like an inflated balloon. Chapter 2763. The Immovable Wisdom King. Zhang Tianyi looked at the black monk in surprise. This fatty who looked like a monk with meat and wine actually had a firm Buddhist heart. The Immovable Wisdom King was also called the Immovable Bodhisattva. It meant unshakable and unshakable will. The black monk was using the immovable mountain of the Immovable Wisdom King. It was also called the Unbreakable Mountain and Unshakable Technique. In other words, it was an unbreakable and unshakable spell. It was the best defensive spell in Buddhism. Black, gold, and red threads of light intertwined on the black monk's body. It formed a dharma with angry eyes. It was the immovable bodhisattva. The dharma seemed to be real. Majestic, mighty, mysterious, and unpredictable. It also made people feel at ease. This spell is hard to break, Bifla said, frowning. Even he felt that he couldn't break it. It wasn't hard to defeat the black monk. It wasn't hard to kill him in the dharma either. What was hard was to break the spell. This spell was far more complicated and abstruse than it seemed on the surface. This spell is connected to the world. It's indeed unbreakable. Zhang Tianyi nodded. I've long heard of the ultimate Buddhist spell. Now that I've seen it, it's indeed worthy of its reputation. I wonder how Qin Zhao will break it. Mary, the 23rd blood, looked at Qin Zhao. As one of the best, she believed that it wouldn't be hard for Qin Zhao to kill the black monk. But the best naturally had their pride. Qin Zhao's pride probably wouldn't allow him to win by trickery. After all, this wasn't a battlefield. If it was a battlefield, it would be natural for Qin Zhao to kill the black monk using any method. But now it was a junior asking a senior for advice. As a senior, Qin Zhao still had to use trickery to win. His absolute dignity and honor would probably be thrown away. Even Cyclops and Zhu Hongyi felt that the black monk's spell wasn't normal. Right now, the black monk seemed to have merged with the world and coexisted with the mountains and rivers. In this state, the black monk was almost invincible. At least, Cyclops and Zhu Hongyi couldn't think of a way to break the spell no matter how hard they thought. Finally, Qin Zhao looked at the black monk. Interesting, Qin Zhao commented. Are you ready? Come. The countdown starts now. Qin Zhao raised 2 fingers on his right hand. A small black ball condensed between his fingers. Pop, the small black ball shot through the air and accurately hit the black monk's avatar. In an instant, the immovable bodhisattva's dharma form rippled. Immediately after, the surrounding ground cracked and a large area of the forest behind them began to sink. The shockwave reached a diameter of over 1,000 meters. The power that seemed to be able to destroy heaven and earth continued to spread. Even the world behind the Dharma looked like it was about to be torn apart. Red cracks continued to spread in the air. In the eyes of the one-eyed man and Zhu Hongyi, this scene was already extremely shocking. This terrifying phenomenon had already exceeded their imagination and understanding. In their eyes, strength might be defeating a few or a few dozen people. But the power Qin Zhao had displayed was beyond their understanding. That was pure destructive power. Just like the gods in the myths who could move mountains and fill up the seas. Mary, the 23rd generation's blood, couldn't help but show a serious expression. Qin Zhao's attack was simple and clear. But it was still beyond her imagination. He was also one of the top experts. The first time he met Qin Zhao, they had a small conflict. At that time, Qin Zhao had only just entered the Shangqing state. The two were evenly matched. But now, Qin Zhao had long surpassed her or even surpassed her. Far surpassed. And this probably wasn't Qin Zhao's full power. Qin Zhao was probably still holding back. Bifil was the newest top expert. He thought he could also reach this level. But the difference between him and Qin Zhao was that one needed to go all out, while the other didn't even use his full power. Only Zhang Tianyi seemed to have predicted it. That day in the battle in the Qinling Mountains, Qin Zhao had displayed the same power. The huge red cracks in the air should be the level of power Qin Zhao had comprehended recently. After the smoke, the black monk knelt on the ground, vomiting blood. Under such a terrifying attack, he was heavily injured even with the protection of the immovable wisdom Dharma. In the past, his seniors and even his enemies had said more than once that the immovable wisdom Dharma was the ultimate defensive spell. No spell could shake or destroy it. but today it had been destroyed by someone head-on. Okay, you can scram now. Qin Zhao waved his hand. The black monk hadn't died after taking one attack from him, even when there was an absolute difference in level. Regardless of whether Qin Zhao had shown mercy, it meant that the black monk was good. So he still had potential. He might have a chance to enter the Shangqing state in the future. Little monk, I have high hopes for you. If you have a chance to attain the one Bodhi leaf in 30 years, you can discuss with us, Zhang Tianyi said, stroking his long beard. It seemed that Zhang Tianyi admired the black monk. The one-eyed dragon and Zhu Hongyi's expressions became even worse. The black monk could take the power of that attack. But what could they use to block such a terrifying attack? Moreover, Zhang Tianyi's words had revealed some information. Qin Zhao was at the same level as them. Looking at Qin Zhao's peerlessly terrifying attack, one could roughly know what kind of people they were at this level. Even if he wasn't a god, he was probably not far from it. Who's next? Qin Zhao glanced at the one-eyed dragon and Zhu Hongyi. Only the two of them were left. Qin Zhao was somewhat excited to see if they could bring him any surprises. Zhu Hongyi gathered her courage and stepped forward. I'll go. Qin Zhao looked at her. You need time to prepare? 5 minutes, she said. You have 5 minutes. Zhang Tianyi glanced at Zhu Hongyi, who was preparing 100 meters away. He couldn't help but look surprised. Interesting. The 23rd Blood Mary was also surprised. Girl, if you can survive, are you willing to become my disciple? Zhu Hongyi glanced at the 23rd Blood Mary. She was tempted by the 23rd Blood Mary's suggestion. However, she couldn't think about anything else right now. Qin Zhao was giving her too much pressure. She also didn't have much confidence in her trump card. After all, the opponent wasn't an ordinary cultivator. He wasn't on the same level as the opponents she'd faced in the past. He was a cultivator on the same level as Celestial Master Zhang. He was even more ruthless and cold-blooded than Celestial Master Zhang. Even if she only needed to hold on for 10 seconds. 10 seconds was enough for her to die 10 times. And he only had one chance. Zhu Hongyi didn't dare to waste a second. She focused on preparing. Chapter 2764. Pillar after pillar rose and fell around Zhu Hongyi. There were red, blue, green, black, and yellow pillars. The pillars were of different lengths. Some were 3 to 4 meters long, while others were less than 3 meters. There seemed to be no pattern, but there was an unfathomable pattern to it. I heard in the past that a girl from the Zhuge family left the family and joined the Five Elements sect. I didn't know why. Zhang Tianyi looked at Zhu Hongyi and sighed emotionally. Now, I can somewhat understand why she would make such a choice. This seems to be a magic formation. Blood Mary was confused. The 23rd Blood Mary was a master of formations herself. However, she couldn't understand Zhu Hongyi's arrangement. He seemed to have missed something. Or maybe it was beyond her knowledge. It's not just a magic formation, Bifla said. Her energy is resonating with the pillars, but I can't understand it. What do you think, Celestial Master Zhang? Genius. Zhang Tianyi gave the simplest description. I don't understand. Is her magic formation difficult to learn? No, it's not because of the difficulty of the magic array she cast. It's because this magic array is her own creation. Moreover, it's a combination of two systems and her own thoughts. Although it's not perfect, she's worthy of the word genius for being able to achieve this with her current realm. Zhang Tianyi exclaimed. If she was a boy instead of a girl, she'd be the brightest one in the Zhuge family. Her talent might even be on par with Qin Zhao's. That's too much. Bifla and the 23rd generation didn't agree with Zhang Tianyi. Who was Qin Zhao? He wasn't even 30 yet, but he was already the closest to the peak. In terms of talent, even Zhang Tianyi couldn't compare to him. If Qin Zhao was given another 10 years, they didn't doubt that Qin Zhao would leave a huge gap between the three of them. None of the geniuses could compare to that guy. All the monstrous geniuses and geniuses that they knew and had seen would be overshadowed in front of that guy. But now Zhang Tianyi actually said that Zhu Hongyi's talent was on par with Qin Zhao's. They naturally didn't agree with this. Of course, even if they possessed the same natural talent, different fortuitous encounters and characters would cause them to reach different heights in the end. Not all geniuses could grow to their full potential. There might be geniuses who could rival Qin Zhao in history. But since ancient times there had only been one Qin Zhao. However, Zhang Tianyi equated Zhu Hongyi's talent with Qin Zhao's. This in itself was already the greatest reward for Zhu Hongyi. According to Zhang Tianyi, Zhu Hongyi could grow up. Would he be the second Qin Zhao? If what Zhang Tianyi said was true, then no matter what, he had to get this little girl to join his force. Not to mention growing into a second Qin Zhao. Even if it was half, no, even if it was 1/10. To any force, that was a top-notch combat power. Of course, the prerequisite was that she could survive Qin Zhao's attack. Or rather, how much did Qin Zhao still want to kill her? However, judging from how Qin Zhao let go of the Black Monk, Qin Zhao wasn't as confident as before. Qin Zhao didn't necessarily want to kill everyone. Otherwise, it was impossible for the Black Monk to survive. Don't be fooled by the fact that the Black Monk used the immovable Wisdom King. If Qin Zhao really wanted to kill, even if the Black Monk used Virokana, it would be useless. Both the people involved and the bystanders knew that. As long as Zhu Hongyi could display enough value or potential. Zhang Tianyi, the 23rd Blood Mary, and Baifla all understood Qin Zhao's intentions. If they had enough potential and could become their companions in the future, then they would have the right to survive. But if they couldn't satisfy Qin Zhao, then they would lose the right. Qin Zhao's brows relaxed slightly. His cold gaze had a hint of warmth and light. Zhang Tianyi could see it. He could see it too. What was special about Zhu Hongyi? With Zhu Hongyi's own cultivation, not to mention the Shangqing realm, she didn't even have any leftovers. But at this moment she had artificially created a small world. A genius's imagination coupled with a genius's deduction. Zhu Hongyi must have found out about the Shangqing realm from somewhere. She also knew about some of its special features. Then she combined the Zhuge family's formation and the spells of the 5 elements sect's inner sect. After separating the wheat from the chaff, she created such a small world. The surrounding pillars of different colors represented metal, wood, water, fire, and earth respectively. The arrangement of these pillars replaced the heavenly patterns of the small world. All the pillars combined into a huge formation. All the techniques merged into one, finally forming a unique small world. It was completely different from other small worlds. It might be the first and only man-made small world in history. Of course, with Qin Zhao's eyesight he could still see many flaws. For example, this small world didn't have a close connection with Zhu Hongyi. For Shangqing realm experts like Qin Zhao, the small world was completely one with them. But for Zhu Hongyi, the small world was an external object. She could control it, but she couldn't use it as she pleased. While the small world brought her benefits, it also added a huge burden to her. She didn't have the ability to bear the burden of the small world. So, according to Qin Zhao's estimation, she could last 3 minutes at most. Another important thing was that her small world could be destroyed. No matter how genius her idea was, it couldn't erase this huge flaw. For Qin Zhao and the others, the small world couldn't be destroyed. But Zhu Hongyi's formation could be destroyed. So, there was still a huge gap between her and a true Shangqing realm expert. Her idea was genius and she'd even put it into practice. Her battle power had increased greatly in a short time. But there was still an irreparable gap between her and a true Shangqing realm expert. In fact, Baifla could already crush her when he was half a step into the Shangqing realm. If half a step into the Shangqing realm was 0.5, then Zhu Hongyi's was 0.1. Of course, it was undeniable that even 0.1 was a rare talent. If she could truly reach the Shangqing realm in the future, she would be more outstanding than others. She would also be more adapted to the changes brought by the Shangqing realm. Qin Zhao raised 2 fingers again and used the same trick. A small black ball formed in front of his fingers. This time, no one dared to underestimate Qin Zhao's simple attack. Chapter 2765. As Zhang Tianyi raised his hand, the world around them turned upside down and the stars moved. An alternate dimension that looked like a fairyland had already enveloped everyone. In this alternate dimension there were mountain ranges and a sea of clouds. They were at the top of a mountain. The sea of clouds surged and churned beneath their feet. Zhang Tianyi hadn't planned on attacking. But he couldn't care so much now. If he didn't attack now, the situation would really get out of hand. Qin Zhao's attack range was too large. Their location was rather remote. But there was a highway to the airport not far away. There was still quite a lot of traffic. Moreover, mobile devices nowadays could take pictures and videos. If he accidentally recorded Qin Zhao's movements, he would be in trouble. Then it would be hard to deal with. Everyone was astonished. To Cyclops, the black monk Zhu Hongyi and Lao Lai, this was a great spell that could move mountains and fill oceans. They had never seen such a wondrous spell before. A moment ago they were in the wilderness. The next moment they were in this fairyland. But to Qin Zhao, Bifla, and the 23rd Blood Mary, what surprised them was the uniqueness of this alternate dimension. The spiritual qi of the world here was abundant, hundreds of times more than the outside world. Amidst the sea of clouds in the distance, there were about a dozen towering figures. The towering figures were faintly discernible. They didn't seem real. Each of them emitted a boundless, majestic aura. The figures sat in the sea of clouds. Although the aura was majestic, they didn't seem like humans. Qin Zhao only glanced into the distance and then looked away. They weren't humans, nor were they things left behind by humans. They should be the materialization of some kind of power in the form of humans. That was all Qin Zhao could sense. Bifla and the 23rd Blood Mary could sense even less. Because the figures were too far away, their pocket dimension couldn't touch them directly. They could only sense them through the aura they emitted. This was also their first time entering Zhang Tiany's alternate dimension. It was clearly not an ordinary space. Zhang Tiany hadn't created it himself. It was likely left behind by someone. As Qin Zhao's opponent this time, Zhu Hongyi suddenly realized that the pressure on her had decreased. The pocket dimension she'd created with the power of the 5 elements was an external force. Therefore this small world almost crushed her bones. But at this moment she felt the pressure on her suddenly lessen. Felt like he was carrying a huge mountain. At this moment he felt like he was jumping through 2 buckets of water. Although there was still pressure, it was no longer as unbearable as before. Moreover, the environment here made her magic power even greater. Focus. Zhang Tiany's voice rang out in Zhu Hongyi's mind. The amount of dermic power you have is meaningless to your opponent. Even a peerless great demon with hundreds or even thousands of times more dermic power than you currently have was defeated by a single punch from that fellow. What you need to do now is use everything you have to block that fellow's attack. Zhu Hongyi's heart skipped a beat. That person had not revealed himself at all. He did not have any reputation at all. However, Zhang Tiany's description of this person was so terrifying. It was as if he was a living demon god. Zhu Hongyi immediately calmed herself down. He raised his hands and a glassy arm reached out from the sea of clouds. Judging from the visual senses of this spell alone, it was definitely earth-shattering. Even the one-eyed dragon, Old Lai, and the black monk who had already passed were in disbelief. They did not expect Zhu Hongyi to have this up her sleeve. Of course, she knew better than anyone else. Zhu Hongyi knew very well that under normal circumstances, she would not be able to cast such a magnificent and unbelievable spell. However, in this fairyland-like place, her spell had been magnified many times. The huge glassy arm reached out and blocked in front of Zhu Hongyi. Qin Zhao glanced at Zhang Tiany, who was not far away. He knew that this was Zhang Tiany's doing. Zhang Tiany was secretly helping Zhu Hongyi. After all, even if Zhu Hongyi used special methods to create a small world, it would still be difficult for her to cast such an earth-shattering spell. Qin Zhao did not have any additional power. Of course, the real choice was still in Qin Zhao's hands. Whether or not to kill Zhu Hongyi was also up to Qin Zhao. If Zhu Hongyi had to die, Qin Zhao only needed to increase his power by 20%. Even if Zhang Tiany personally attacked, he would not be able to protect Zhu Hongyi. The little black ball shot through the air. As it flew, it continuously absorbed the surrounding clouds. It continuously absorbed the surrounding clouds and mist. Moreover, it formed a cyclone that lingered around it. The clouds were cut apart in the little black ball's path. There was an extremely heavy sound of collision. The huge glassy arm formed by Zhu Hongyi's power was instantly shattered. One-eyed dragon, black monk, and old scoundrel all felt their teeth hurt. Even though they had already expected this result. But when they saw Qin Zhao shatter that shocking spell so easily, they were shocked. They still found it hard to accept. It was as if no matter how hard they tried, no matter how much they struggled, they could not close the distance between them and Qin Zhao. But just then the little black ball actually changed its angle. It flew past Zhu Hongyi and into the distance. The little black ball flew for thousands of meters. Finally, a ripple appeared in the sea of clouds. After about 10 seconds, the strong impact knocked everyone off their feet. Zhu Hongyi's hands and feet were cold. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more and she would have died in Qin Zhao's hands. Judging from the impact of the little black ball just now, it was clear that the black ball wasn't as powerful as before. If the little black ball had hit her directly, she would have died for sure. A very smart way to deal with it. Qin Zhao was basically praising Zhu Hongyi. You chose to use all your power to deflect my attack instead of blocking it. To put it bluntly, Zhu Hongyi and Qin Zhao were playing with common sense. Her majestic glassy arm was not used to block Qin Zhao's attack. Instead, it was used to deflect Qin Zhao's attack. She was using the technique of deflecting 1,000 kilograms with little effort. But even so, the glass arm still exceeded its limit and shattered. Zhu Hongyi had only shifted the little black ball's trajectory by a tiny bit. And this tiny bit had saved her life. You passed. Qin Zhao accepted his second failure calmly. Zhu Hongyi finally let out a long sigh and looked at One-Eyed Dragon. One-Eyed Dragon's expression was stiff. Zhu Hongyi and Black Monk had both passed. Now it was his turn to face Qin Zhao's test. Regardless of whether it was the Black Monk or Zhu Hongyi, both of them had displayed outstanding abilities. Their trump cards were indeed eye-catching. It could be said that if their opponent was someone else, they would have a 90% chance of winning. But against Qin Zhao they could barely protect themselves. Moreover, this self-protection was actually Qin Zhao going easy on them. Although it was said to be 10 seconds, it was actually just one attack. One-Eyed Dragon looked at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao also looked at him. It's your turn. Are you ready? Chapter 2766. Cyclops was frustrated. However, he was also very calm and spread his hands. I don't need to prepare. I can do it anytime. Oh, I didn't expect you to be so confident. After all, he'd already done it twice. Even a blind person could see his strength. He'd let his opponent pass both times. But that didn't mean he was weak. Anyone could tell that Qin Zhao had gone easy on him. What gave the one-eyed man such confidence and courage? Or did he give up on himself? Qin Zhao couldn't help but glance at Cyclops. He was nervous but not too afraid. Qin Zhao suddenly remembered that he'd heavily injured Cyclops earlier. But soon Cyclops stood before him unscathed. Was it because he had an extraordinary self-healing spell? That spell must have some kind of price. Seeing that Qin Zhao was deep in thought, Cyclops said directly, Sir, you don't need to guess. I have 3 life talismans. They can protect me from dying 3 times. I'm truly immortal. Even if you blast me into pieces, I can recover unharmed. Soul attacks don't work? Will you be able to recover even if I destroy your soul? The life talismans contain a part of my soul, so even if my soul and body are blasted into pieces, I can recover. So, you used that destiny talisman earlier so you were able to recover? You didn't die just now. To me, as long as I don't die, I'm immortal. So you still have 3 chances to revive. Is that what you mean? Yes. That is to say, as long as I kill you 4 times in 10 seconds, you will definitely die. One-Eyed Dragon's expression froze in an instant. However, he quickly returned to normal. Sir, you must be joking. Although the life talisman can revive, it still needs a certain amount of time. What if I can speed up the revival process? Qin Zhao asked, narrowing his eyes. Cyclops' expression froze again. In his eyes, Qin Zhao was an almost omnipotent master. So, it was possible that Qin Zhao could speed up the process. Oh, you're kidding. I've never seen this spell before. How can I do it? Qin Zhao chuckled and waved his hand. You pass. Cyclops sat on the ground, paralyzed. Originally, he was indeed full of confidence. But Qin Zhao's few words had already broken through his psychological defense. All of his confidence came from his natal talisman. If Qin Zhao really deciphered the life talisman, or rather, it really accelerated the effect of the life talisman, then the life-saving talisman would become the talisman of death. No one wants to die. Especially after dying 3 times in a row. He didn't know if Qin Zhao could do it. Qin Zhao said that he had never seen this spell before. However, he couldn't guarantee that an expert like Qin Zhao would be able to break this spell. But if Qin Zhao could really decipher the life talisman, then what awaited him would be a nightmare. Qin Zhao could kill him in less than a second. After all, his martial uncle Zhang Tiexing was killed by his glare. He didn't think that his cultivation was comparable to his uncle master's. Fortunately, Qin Zhao did not continue to make things difficult for him. Where did you get this natal talisman? Qin Zhao didn't continue to make things difficult for him because he was interested in this natal talisman. The one-eyed man's heart skipped a beat as he cursed inwardly. He was too careless that he was targeted by Qin Zhao. Senior. The one-eyed man was already calling Qin Zhao senior. This natal talisman was passed down in my 5-element sect. Didn't you say that you have 3? Give me one. Senior, this natal talisman is essentially a magic treasure. It's already been used. And it's not 3 but 1 set of 3. Once used it's gone. I see. Then your 5-element sect still has more, right? Get your sect leader or someone else to refine another one for me. Senior, the method to refine this natal talisman has been lost. Oh. Then help me send a message to your 5-element sect. Give me a natal talisman in 10 days or exterminate your sect. The one-eyed man shivered and almost fell to the ground. He could only look at Zhang Tianyi for help. Don't look at me. I can't do anything. Plus, you're the one who brought trouble to your sect. Plus, your 5-element sect isn't a good person. It'll be much quieter if you're exterminated. Zhang Tianyi's statement threw the one-eyed man into a bottomless abyss. At the same time, it was a judgment on the 5-element sect. The 5-element sect would either fulfill Qin Zhao's request, or they would be exterminated by Qin Zhao. Of course they still had a way out. That was to ask the government for help. But once they did that, then they would be exterminated. First, the spiritual world wouldn't accept them anymore. What happened in the pugilistic world would be settled in the pugilistic world. Why would you ask the government for protection? Plus, the government wouldn't keep a behemoth like the 5-element sect. The 5-element sect had too many members. So the government would cut them off. They would split the people into different departments. Then they would take away the 5-element sect's books. The good thing was that they wouldn't die. With the government's protection their lives would be saved. But from then on they would no longer be pugilistic people. So this was basically their last option. If there was any other way to survive, they wouldn't ask the government for help. If they really did that, then Qin Zhao could only give up. Qin Zhao glanced at Zhang Tianyi. Let us out. Zhang Tianyi waved his hand but Qin Zhao and the others didn't leave. Instead Lao Lai, Zhu Hongyi, the black monk and the one-eyed man were sent out. Only Baifla, Blood Mary and Qin Zhao were left. What do you mean? This is the stately painting. Don't you want to cultivate here for a few hours? The stately painting? The legendary stately painting. Qin Zhao's eyes widened, his face filled with shock. Wasn't the stately painting the river diagram? Wasn't the river diagram in his hands? Wait, the river diagram and the stately painting were both goddess Nua's treasures. But the two seemed to be, probably not the same thing. Zhang Tianyi noticed Qin Zhao's expression. What's wrong? Is there a problem? No, nothing. Qin Zhao shook his head. Qin Zhao's mind was a mess. Was the stately painting related to the river diagram? There was the stately painting and the river diagram. Did the Book of Luo exist too? Qin Zhao had never considered these questions when he rushed over. Now Qin Zhao started thinking passively. This stately painting is an ancient precious treasure, and it forms a world of its own. The energy of the heavens and the earth here is boundless, and it's more than 100 times denser than the outside world. Cultivating here is several times faster than cultivating in the outside world. Moreover, it's easy to suppress greater demons and ferocious devils. Suppress if you want. Why are you looking at me? Chapter 2767. Zhang Tianyi smiled and didn't say anything. You called Baifla and Mary here to discuss your recent gains, right? Qin Zhao shrugged. He opened his palm and a ball of fire rose from it. The three immediately noticed the fire in Qin Zhao's palm. Isn't that your nirvana flame? Mary, the 23rd blood, looked at Qin Zhao in confusion. No, it's more complicated. Baifla was an expert at playing with fire. Therefore he felt that there was something special in the fire. It's more violent, surging and exuberant. It also has an indescribable chill. Baifla looked at Qin Zhao. How did you do it? Fusing with other energies. More accurately, it's fusing with nether energy. Extremely opposite energies. Nether energy can be said to be the dirtiest negative energy. You can fuse the two? They weren't unfamiliar with the term energy fusion. However, not every type of energy could be fused. Moreover, the energies they could fuse were the more common ones. They weren't high-level energies. They fused energies to obtain higher-level energies. However, the fusion process was very complicated. It wasn't safe either. Once it went out of control, it could release shocking energy. Now they heard that Qin Zhao had actually fused Nirvana flame and nether energy. They found it unbelievable. First, I'll talk about my findings and thoughts. Qin Zhao glanced at the three of them and continued. First is the method to activate the inner world. I obtained it from the soul of a big monster in Huaxia old monster Kunlai. This method is more complete, but it's very difficult to cultivate. Zhang Tianyi didn't expect Kunlai to have such an important technique. If he'd known, he would have killed Kunlai long ago. He didn't expect Qin Zhao to benefit from it now. Thankfully, Qin Zhao didn't plan on hiding it. He actually took it out. I'll share the technique to activate the inner world and cultivate it with you guys later, Qin Zhao said. Qin Zhao said, this cultivation method absorbs the yin and yang qi and fuses them. I've cultivated it a little. Although this is a cultivation method of the demon race, humans can also cultivate it. However, when refining the yin and yang qi, it will cause extreme pain to the body. Ordinary people can't bear it. Then can I use other spells to conceal this pain? I haven't tried it before. You can try, Qin Zhao said. But I haven't studied it in depth. Why? Everyone was somewhat puzzled. After all, it would not be an exaggeration to say that this cultivation technique was a peerless treasure. Why didn't Qin Zhao cultivate? Could it be that the pain had reached a limit that even he could not bear? Because in the following days I found a second set of the same level, Qin Zhao said. Zhang Tianyi, Bifla and 23rd Blood Mary all widened their eyes and stared at Qin Zhao in shock. Of course, I will also share the second set of cultivation methods with you. Back to the main topic. After comparing the two sets of cultivation methods, I found that the second set of cultivation methods is more suitable for me. Of course, it is not completely suitable for me, so after separating the wheat from the chaff, I used these two sets of cultivation methods as the foundation and created my own cultivation method. I won't share this thing. After all, this cultivation method is only suitable for me. You may not be suitable for it. Everyone did not think too much about it. If Qin Zhao wanted to keep it to himself, he did not need to take out two sets of cultivation methods. After exploring the two sets of cultivation methods, I found that the two sets of cultivation methods took completely different paths in energy extraction and refining methods. One uses yin and yang qi to refine chaotic qi, while the second takes the path of absolute yang qi to refine extreme yang qi. After experimenting on my own, I created my own cultivation method, refining the flames of nirvana, scorching qi and my own mana. In the end, I obtained another type of energy which I call mixed spirit qi. Later, I was tricked by old Zhang to deal with a 1,000-year-old monster. After devouring his dark spirit qi, I integrated it into the mixed spirit qi, thus obtaining this special energy. I simply and crudely named it mixed spirit qi. Under normal circumstances, it can appear in the form of flames or lightning. It can also cause additional damage to my physical attacks. As for destructive power, Qin Zhao glanced at Zhang Tianyi and continued, if I release all my energy in an instant, I can probably vaporize Shanghai directly. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. With the strength of the three of them, it was not difficult for them to destroy a city. Therefore they were called mobile nuclear weapons. However, to vaporize an entire city, this was a completely different concept. Of course, this kind of combat power performance is not very meaningful to us. With my strength, if I ambush you, none of you will be able to dodge it. If we fight head-on, we will need other methods. You won't just stand there and let me use my ultimate move. Everyone nodded, but they were still shocked by Qin Zhao's combat power. I'll mainly talk about what I learned. Everyone gathered their thoughts and listened to Qin Zhao's speech. The Buddhists say that a flower is a world and a leaf is a Bodhi. After I entered this level and opened my inner world, I realized that I have a deeper understanding of this saying. My inner world is like a vast universe, endless and endless. However, bearing this inner world will put a huge burden on the body. It can be said that the amount of burden you can bear represents how much of your inner world you can open. However, my team gave me another inspiration. The reason why my inner world puts a burden on me is that I haven't fully developed it. The energy in my inner world hasn't truly fused with my body. I'm at this stage right now. I plan to continue researching from this angle. Qin Zhao's speech gave me a lot of inspiration, Bifla said. I'll also talk about my recent research. Everyone looked at Bifla. They were very curious about what Bifla's research results would be. After all, at a gathering of this level, anything that could be shared wouldn't be an ordinary research discovery. Not long ago I discovered and excavated the remains of an ancient god. I also found one of his arms. Are you sure it's a god? Not a powerful human? Mary the 23rd blood questioned. Calm down and let me finish, Bifla said. Bifla said, the reason why I'm certain that this arm is the remains of an ancient god is because I discovered something unusual about this arm. Chapter 2768. I discovered that this arm has a use, Bifla said. It's to obtain the power of faith. Obtain the power of faith? Zhang Tianyi frowned and looked at Bifla in confusion. There were many legends in China too. The most mainstream ones were naturally Taoism and Buddhism. Taoism focused on purifying one's heart and limiting one's desires. Buddhism, on the other hand, focused on delivering all living beings from suffering and going to paradise. To a certain extent, they would also preach and preach. However, the two major religions in China didn't do brainwashing preaching. On the other hand, many Western religions, especially the JD religion, had reached a terrifying stage in their preaching methods. This was why Bifla's words piqued Zhang Tianyi's interest. I've read many legends about gods from all over the world. From my point of view, I can divide gods into three categories. 3 types of gods. Yes, the first type are gods who collect the power of faith. The more believers they have, the more powerful they are, Bifla said. Bifla said, for example, the god of the world's largest religion, if he really exists. What about the second and third types? The second type is the gods who have theocracy, just like the Olympian gods in Greek mythology. They all have a clear division of theocracy. Each god has one or more theocracies. I've done some research in this area and I found that the Olympian gods really exist. Just then the 23rd blood Mary looked at Qin Zhao. I think he has the most right to speak. Bifla and Zhang Tianyi couldn't help but look at Qin Zhao. Qin Zhao scratched his nose and said, I once entered a huge alternate dimension, the legendary Mount Olympus, and killed a god, Hercules. He wasn't as powerful as I imagined. Maybe it was because he was still weak at the time or for some other reason. At the very least, he didn't match the title of Hercules. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any god or person stronger than him in this world, but in reality I've already surpassed him. First of all, the Olympian gods should belong to a new group of gods. Their existence is very short and their sphere of influence is very small. This shows that their strength is limited. Most of their power comes from divine authority, so we can roughly judge their strength. Bifla continued, I suspect that it's a kind of rule. The creator among them found a way to master this rule. This creator might be Zeus himself. Then he began to spread the usage of this rule in a small area, which led to the emergence of a large number of gods. They are collectively known as the Olympian gods. This kind of divine authority should take time to accumulate, and the time they exist means that they will not be too powerful. Of course, compared to ordinary people, they are already powerful enough. At least in the eyes of ordinary people, they are no different from gods. What about the third type of deity? You, me, and the 4 of us are the third type of deities. Through the complicated process of cultivation, we have achieved our own strength. In terms of the strength of the living beings in this world, we have undoubtedly surpassed all living beings. The crowd didn't reject it too much and they didn't think too much about it. While they had great power, their way of thinking was still that of a modern person. I think that these 3 types of deities each have their own powerful systems, but they don't conflict with each other. As for whose upper limit is higher, or if there is no real upper limit, I can't make a clear judgment right now. Bifla looked at Qin Zhao. Is the body of the titan you killed still there? Qin Zhao shook his head. Not anymore. I blew him into pieces. In that situation I couldn't hold back. What a pity. If there was a complete body of the Olympian gods, we might have a chance to unravel the mysteries of divine authority. About the power of faith, how much confidence did you get from that hand? A part, but it's not complete, Bifla said. And it doesn't seem too good. Why do you say that? Just like how some evil creatures devour the life force of other creatures to obtain great power, the power of faith isn't as good as it looks, especially for believers. If you need it, I can provide you with a piece of information that I've researched. Forget about me, Qin Zhao said, shrugging. I don't plan on building a religion for myself. It was a pity that he couldn't leave Titan's body intact last time. After all, he felt that Titan's divine authority was quite suitable for him. If he had the chance to meet another Olympian god, he would keep an eye on him. Perhaps he wouldn't just leave his body intact. He might even capture him alive. Of course, it was hard to say. After all, it was hard to say if he could meet one. Moreover, gods were extremely dangerous existences. None of the self-proclaimed gods that Qin Zhao had met were easy to deal with. Titan had been defeated by him, but it didn't mean that he could defeat the other gods. Among the Olympian gods, Hercules was not the most powerful. He wasn't even one of the 12 or a pure-blooded god. He was only a demigod. There was also Zeus, the king of the gods, among the 12. Qin Zhao wasn't arrogant enough to think that he could take all the Olympian gods away. In this gathering, everyone shared some of their experiences. Some were useful while others were just tricks to make everyone laugh. Then Zhang Tianyi put away the mountain river map. Everyone was still reluctant to let go of the extremely dense spiritual qi in the mountain river map. After all, cultivating in it was a blessing. On the way back to the hotel, Zhang Tianyi quietly tossed 2 boxes to Qin Zhao. What's this? Qin Zhao looked at the 2 boxes that weighed more than 50 kilograms and looked at Zhang Tianyi in confusion. Your reward for this. What? Reward? Didn't you give it already? Then take it as a tip, Zhang Tianyi said in annoyance. I didn't think that I'd be tipped one day, Qin Zhao said in self-mockery. But he clearly didn't plan on returning it to Zhang Tianyi. Judging from Zhang Tianyi's expression, there must be something good in the boxes. Qin Zhao put the boxes into his spatial ring. You're going back to Los Angeles? I'm fine here. Didn't you threaten that kid from the 5 Elements sect? I don't think the 5 Elements sect can take out that thing. What, do you really want me to destroy them? Qin Zhao was just trying his luck. If he was really lucky and forced it out, it would be great. Even if he didn't, Qin Zhao wouldn't be so upset. Chapter 2769. Qin Zhao didn't know what the life talisman was exactly. However, it could be resurrected. It was similar to the substitute coin that Qin Zhao had gotten from hell. It was useless to Qin Zhao now. But it could still protect his family. However, this kind of thing would most likely have some restrictions. It would also be difficult to make. So Qin Zhao didn't have high hopes. Qin Zhao dared to kill the assassin organization, but that didn't mean he dared to slaughter the entire 5 Elements sect. After returning to the hotel, Qin Zhao opened the box that Zhang Tianyi had given him. Inside was a round plate and a spearhead. They should be made of the same material. The plate and spearhead both gave off a faint, strange aura. It wasn't strong, but it was obvious. What's that? Qin Zhao was confused. He believed that Zhang Tianyi wouldn't give him these 2 things for no reason. But after studying them for a long time, Qin Zhao still couldn't figure out what they were for. Weapons? They looked like them. Spear and shield? Zhang Tianyi should know that no matter how advanced they were just sticks in Qin Zhao's hands. Moreover, they only looked like spears. They definitely weren't real spears and shields. The round plate was engraved with obscure symbols and lines. There were also red lines on the spearhead. After studying for a long time, Qin Zhao finally picked up his phone and called Zhang Tianyi. Old Zhang, what's the use of these things? They're good stuff. Study them yourself. Fuck, you're not even straightforward with your gifts, Qin Zhao cursed and hung up in anger. After studying for another half an hour, he still couldn't figure out what they meant. He could only put the 2 things away. Just then Qin Zhao's phone rang. Hello, is this Mr. Qin? Who is it? Qin Zhao was surprised. He'd thought that it was a foreign call. After all, it was a private number. But the person was speaking Chinese. I'm Brother Wang's assistant, Xiao He. Qin Zhao slapped his forehead. He immediately thought of Wang He's assistant, Xiao He, whom he'd met once before. Qin Zhao hadn't heard her speak much, so he didn't have a deep impression of her voice. But why did Wang He give his phone number to his assistant? Hello, how can I help you? Brother Wang is in the hospital. Can you come and see him? What happened to Wang He? Which hospital is he in now? I'll go there right now. Qin Zhao was a little confused. He and Wang He weren't exactly best friends, right? Wang He was hospitalized, so why did he insist on seeing him? Although logically speaking, she knew that he was sick and needed to visit him. However, Wang He had taken the initiative to invite him over to visit him. That was a little problematic. Of course Qin Zhao wouldn't reject Xiao He for this. Xiao He then gave him the address of the hospital. Qin Zhao took a taxi to the hospital. At the entrance of the hospital, he saw Xiao He tugging at the hem of her clothes with her small hands and her anxious eyes. Seeing Qin Zhao, he immediately ran over excitedly. "Mr. Qin, I'm sorry for wasting your time." Qin Zhao realized that Xiao He seemed to be panicking. "Did you run into some trouble?" Qin Zhao asked. Xiao He's eyes flickered vaguely. "Brother Wang said that if there's any trouble he can't solve, he can find you. You'll definitely have a solution." Xiao He looked at Qin Zhao nervously, afraid that he would leave. Why would Wang He say such things to his little assistant out of the blue? Moreover, he should know that even if there was trouble, he might not be able to solve it in China. After all, most of Qin Zhao's connections were in America. In China, Qin Zhao's connections were even weaker than Wang He's. "Take me to see Wang He first." Qin Zhao didn't ask further. He wanted to see Wang He's condition first. Xiao He brought Qin Zhao to the intensive care ward. Because Wang He was a celebrity and a very famous one at that, there were 8 bodyguards in black standing guard outside the ward. After entering the ward, Qin Zhao saw Wang He unconscious on the bed. One of Wang He's feet was in a cast and hung in the air. His head was also bandaged and there were many abrasions on his face. What's going on? Qin Zhao had thought that Wang He was sick. But now he realized that he was injured. It didn't look like a normal hand either. It looked more like someone had beaten him. Who did this? Wang He didn't bring bodyguards? This morning a few people appeared out of nowhere and started punching and kicking Brother Wang. Then they injured him, Xiao He said with tears in her eyes. Qin Zhao walked to the side of the bed and held Wang He's wrist. His heart rate was stable. There were no internal injuries. But why was there a trace of mana left in his body? The person who beat Wang He up wasn't a normal person? Did he offend someone from the spiritual world? Qin Zhao sent out a bit of mana. Ah! Wang He woke up with a start. He turned around and saw that it was Qin Zhao. "Mr. Qin, tell me what happened." Wang He first looked at Xiao He, who was standing not far away, and then at Qin Zhao. "Mr. Qin, can you do me a favor?" "What favor?" "Help me bring Xiao He to LA for a while." "The person who beat you was after Xiao He," Qin Zhao said calmly. Xiao He tugged at the corner of her shirt, not daring to look up. "They don't care about my identity at all. As a girl, she can't hide from them and I can't help her much either. Plus, I won't be at ease if she goes abroad alone, so I'd like to ask Mr. Qin to take care of her. Plus, she can only apply for a tourist visa at most. She'll have to come back in less than a month, but those people probably won't give up so easily. So, I can only ask you to help me find some connections and let her stay abroad for a while." "Who are those people?" "I don't know who they are exactly, but they're really powerful. Mr. Qin, I'm begging you, okay?" Qin Zhao thought for a while. "Fine. I'll only be responsible for bringing her abroad and helping her get temporary residency. As for her daily life abroad, I don't think I need to take care of it." "No need, I can take care of her other expenses." "Okay, it's settled then." Qin Zhao didn't continue asking. Wang He and Xiao He didn't plan to say more and Qin Zhao didn't bother to ask either. Wang He was basically asking for Qin Zhao's help with a favor. Qin Zhao was willing to accept this favor. Moreover, it wasn't too troublesome for him. To be able to obtain a favor from Wang He, it could be said that he had profited greatly. "I know some people in the country. They might not be bodyguards, but they're definitely more capable than the people at the entrance. They also have a wide range of businesses. If you need help in this area, you can contact the person on this business card." Qin Zhao gave Mo Han's business card to Qin Zhao. Chapter 2770. Wang He glanced at the card and nodded. There was only Mr. Mo, and his phone number. There was no other information. "Mr. Qin, when can you send Xiao He abroad?" "Anytime. Of course, if there was a need, he could buy a ticket to Los Angeles for her now. She's alone. I'm worried." Qin Zhao couldn't help but suspect that Wang He and Xiao He had some sort of relationship beyond work. "Then wait for 2 days. Come with me on the flight I booked," Qin Zhao said. Since he'd agreed to help, he'd do it to the end. Qin Zhao's flight wasn't small. One more person wouldn't make a difference. "If it's convenient, please bring Xiao He with you." "Sure. Come to my hotel at 10 in the morning the day after tomorrow. Can I trouble you to take care of Xiao He for the next 2 days?" "Sure." Qin Zhao nodded. If there's nothing else, I'll take Xiaohe back first. Xiaohe, don't cause trouble for Mr. Chen. I know. Xiaohe was still introverted. She'd also learned some things about Qin Zhao from Wang He. She felt that Qin Zhao was probably in the underworld. He was doing illegal things abroad. So she couldn't help but be a bit reserved when facing Qin Zhao. Xiaohe followed Qin Zhao out of the hospital. The two basically didn't communicate at all. Xiaohe feared Qin Zhao like a tiger. Qin Zhao wasn't interested in Xiaohe either. So the two only responded with silence. After arriving at the hotel, Qin Zhao booked a suite for Xiaohe. Then there was nothing else. They were all adults. Qin Zhao couldn't take care of her all day. As long as she stayed in the hotel, Qin Zhao would be able to rush over immediately if someone caused trouble for her. Plus, Qin Zhao wasn't the only one staying in the hotel. Bifel was right next to Qin Zhao. The two would meet and chat when they had nothing to do. They'd basically booked the entire hotel. Qin Zhao booked an entire floor. Because Bifla had brought a lot of people, he booked 2 more floors. Right now, Qin Zhao and Bifla were lying on a deck chair beside the pool on the rooftop. They were sunbathing and drinking. Qin Zhao, do you remember Udal Loken we met in Istanbul? Yes. Why? He's doing something again? I think I know his goal. What is his purpose? Shiva's third eye. That's Shiva's godly authority. Didn't his men say that Udal Loken wants to become a god? He wants to obtain the third eye and Shiva's godly authority so that he can become a real god. Qin Zhao narrowed his eyes. Shiva's third eye, divine power. He also had a magic book from Arhan Terrell. But Qin Zhao basically left it in the spatial ring to rot. He had originally planned to find a scholar who was proficient in Sanskrit to study it. However, after returning to Los Angeles, he had already forgotten about this matter. Qin Zhao didn't really care about this. However, now that Bifla was mentioned again, Qin Zhao could not help but have some thoughts. After all, this matter involved divine authority. Qin Zhao also wanted to figure out what divine authority was. Don't you have 2 important subordinates of Udal Loken? Did they provide any useful clues? The information they can provide is very limited. The information they have seems to be very important, but it's all superficial information. They don't know anything about the real core information, but one thing is for sure. They're very important to Udal Loken. Bifla glanced at Qin Zhao. Most of what I know is from my own analysis. Don't you have that magic book about cultivating the third eye? Did you find anything? Qin Zhao was stunned. Yes. No, the information I have is very limited. I need more time to study it. Qin Zhao was too embarrassed to say that he hadn't studied it at all. Actually, guessing is useless. The most direct method is to capture Udal Loken and break his limbs first. Let's see if he'll still be so stubborn. If we can capture him, he wouldn't be alive now. Bifla was rather helpless. Even if he was extremely powerful, even if his cultivation was the best in the world. But facing an enemy like Udal Loken was also a headache. There was no doubt about Udal Loken's strength. Most importantly, this kind of person's actions were still unpredictable. He had to be extremely careful in all his actions. It was difficult to find any traces. This was even more difficult to deal with. A powerful but cautious enemy was the most troublesome. Moreover, Udal Loken had left behind some harsh words before he left. Now Bifla was on tenterhooks every day. No matter how strong the enemy was, Bifla wasn't afraid. At worst, he could just call for reinforcements. Apart from that, he had a lot of friends. Just combat ability alone. No matter how strong he was, could he be stronger than Qin Zhao? Bifla wasn't worried about whether he could get Qin Zhao to help. More importantly, Udal Loken wouldn't show up at all. Guarding against thieves every night was also quite troublesome for him. If you have news of him, let me know. He actually tried to hurt Jerlin last time. I can't rest easy if I don't kill him. That was what Bifla thought. As long as there was any trace of Udal Loken, he would inform Qin Zhao directly and end that mad dog's life. Actually, Qin Zhao was also very unhappy with Udal Loken. Very unhappy. Just then Bifla's mind wandered. Then he said, "You know the girl on the 20th floor, right?" "Yes." "Why?" "A few people came to the hotel lobby. Their auras are similar to hers. They should be from the same place." With Bifla's reminder, Qin Zhao also released his little world senses. Qin Zhao also sensed their existence. However, he didn't sense any aura from them. "I didn't sense any magical aura from them." "How did you?" "Breathing rate," Bifla said. Bifla said. The cultivation method they practice should be to regulate their magic power through breathing. This kind of cultivation method is not common, but I know a few similar cultivation methods, so I am quite familiar with them. Also, they have the same breathing frequency as the little girl you brought back. Their muscles are tense and their breaths are short and long. It seems like they are accumulating energy, waiting for the moment they need it to explode. So, I think they should be coming for the little girl, and they most likely have the intention to kill. Have your men chase them away. Qin Zhao was still lying on the chair, unmoved. Bifla had many experts in his team. Qin Zhao wasn't worried that his men couldn't handle them. Chapter 2771. Wang He quickly picked up his phone. At the same time he picked up a business card. Why do you need a business card to call Yi He? Didn't you call Yi He? Crane Shadow narrowed his eyes at Wang He and approached him in an unfriendly manner. No. Wang He was trembling in fear. He kept waving his hands and explaining, I hired a bodyguard company to protect her. Even if I wanted to contact Xiao He now, I would need to go through the bodyguard company. Crane Shadow pondered for a moment. Were the people he met at the hotel from the bodyguard company? It did look a little similar. However, Crane Shadow still snatched the name card from Wang He's hands. Mr. Mo? 13x times x times x. Crane Shadow tossed the name card back to Wang He. However, the name card did not fall lightly. Instead, with a flash of red light, it stabbed right into the metal backrest on Wang He's back. Wang He was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. Should he call Xiao He directly? Or should he call the number on the business card? Qin Zhao said that the owner of the number on the card was a professional. But no matter how professional he was, he probably wouldn't be able to deal with these people, right? At this moment, Wang He was having an intense internal struggle. He didn't want to die, but he didn't want to hurt Xiao He either. The relationship between him and Xiao He was just an employee. There was no need for him to lose his life for her. However, Wang He really could not bring himself to call Xiao He over. That would really kill her. Hurry up and make the call. Don't play any tricks, Crane Shadow scolded. Wang He was taken aback by this shout. Finally, he made up his mind and dialed the number on the business card. Hopefully this Mr. Mo would have some ability. At the very least he should be a little smarter. Hello, is this Mr. Mo from the security company? I am. Who is it? I'm Wang He, who Mr. Qin introduced. Have you forgotten that I asked you to protect Xiao He? I have something to discuss with Xiao He. Is it convenient for you to ask her to come here? Is it urgent? Yes, very urgent. Okay, I got it. Is it the same place? Yes, it's in the special ward on the 9th floor of Beigang Private Hospital. I'll bring Xiao He over in an hour. Wang He heaved a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, although he didn't know how capable this Mr. Mo was, he was still a good person. But he still had his standards. At least he was witty enough. He had only said a few simple words. The other party had already understood his intentions. It would be best if the other party called the police. Otherwise he would have to find enough people to save him. After all, he wasn't facing a Seising fan this time. It was a type of person that shouldn't exist. Crane Shadow was quite satisfied with Wang He's performance. At this moment Wang He was feeling uneasy. He was just afraid that Mr. Mo was a hothead. Time was ticking away. Wang He kept looking at the time. On the other hand, Crane Shadow was much calmer. All he needed to do was keep an eye on Wang He so that he would not have the chance to call the police or leak out any information. As for the walkway outside, it had already been cleaned up. The nurse on duty had also been knocked out. Therefore, Crane Shadow was not worried that something would go wrong here. At this moment, the sound of footsteps came from outside. The footsteps sounded especially loud in the empty and silent corridor. Both Wang He and Crane Shadow frowned. At this moment, Wang He heard another person's voice coming from outside the door. Who are you? Pudong. It was the sound of a man falling to the ground. The relaxed Crane Shadow immediately stood up. At this time the footsteps had arrived outside the ward. The door of the ward was slowly pushed open. Crane Shadow turned around and jumped next to Wang He's bed, reaching out to grab Wang He's neck. At the same time he looked at the person standing outside the ward cautiously. Wang He was startled. He did not understand why Crane Shadow had such a big reaction. A stranger was standing outside the door. Is this Mr. Wang He? Wang He's neck was being strangled, so he could only look at the stranger outside the door with a bitter smile. You should be able to guess from my current state. I'm Wang He and you're Mr. Mo. Why do you have my number? Mr. Mo, can you consider my current state first? Crane Shadow's muscles were all tensed up. Even the fingers that were holding Wang He's neck were a little stiff. The person standing outside the door. The top cultivator of the supernatural world. At the same time, the top assassin in the world of assassins. Mohan the trickster. Why was he here? Fellow cultivator, can you relax a little? He's about to be strangled to death by you, Mohan said casually. Crane Shadow was stunned for a moment. He could not help but relax his grip. But just as he was about to loosen up, a strong sense of danger came from behind him. Crane Shadow suddenly swung his arm behind him. However, he saw a black shadow coming at him. Crane Shadow immediately felt that he was no match for it. Phantom Flash. Crane Shadow's figure flashed, dodging the black shadow's surprise attack. Wang He was stunned. He clearly saw the black shadow that attacked Crane Shadow from behind. It was Mohan. But wasn't he at the door? Could they be twins? However, when he turned his gaze to the door, he saw that Mohan's body was quickly turning into gravel. Crane Shadow had already retreated 3 meters away. Fortunately, this was a special ward and there was enough room for him to dodge. Otherwise, that attack just now would have taken his life. Mohan clenched his fists in disappointment. Very few people can dodge my first attack. That attack just now was at least 60% of his strength. Most of the time he only needed to use 60% of his strength. Whether or not one could dodge his first attack was basically a standard for Mohan to judge if he needed to be serious. Of course, those who could not dodge his first attack did not need him to be serious. Because they were all dead. Wang He's face was full of surprise. Was this Mr. Mo in front of him the same kind of person as the person in front of him? He touched his neck that still had some lingering pain. Your peers outside are dying if you don't continue to pester me. They're still alive? Crane Shadow was doubtful of Mohan's words. Crane Shadow did not find it strange at all that his peers were dead. On the contrary, the fact that they were still alive made Crane Shadow feel strange and even suspicious. I've recently changed my profession. Even in my previous job, I rarely kill people before reaching an agreement with my employer. Of course, if you want to continue to pester me, I don't mind killing this employer of mine in advance. I don't think he will bargain with me. Crane Shadow slowly retreated to the door. He did not dare to face Mohan with his back. It was too dangerous to face a top assassin with his back. Of course, in reality, no matter which angle one faced a top-notch assassin from, it was all the same danger. Especially when he actually believed the assassin's words. Chapter 2772. When Crane Shadow retreated with his back facing the door, a cold hand suddenly reached out from the back of his neck. And Mohan, who was in front of him, once again turned into dust. Didn't you change your profession? Crane Shadow's scalp went numb. He finally felt how terrifying a top assassin could be. Sorry, it's a habit. Then Crane Shadow felt his vision go black. Then there was nothing. Mohan clapped his hands and looked at Wang He. At the moment, Wang He only felt that Mohan was scarier than Crane Shadow. Mohan's murderous behavior was challenging his bottom line. Tell me about your current situation, Mohan said. Excuse me, Mr. Mo. You and Mr. Chin are... Hi, boss, Mohan said calmly. Wang He did not know what to feel at the moment. Mr. Chin was even involved in the spiritual world. It seemed that he was more powerful than he had imagined. However, this made Wang He even more cautious. He must not offend him. The situation is like this. Wang He explained his situation and the situation to Mohan in detail. It's not a big problem. Judging from the opponent's skills, he's not very powerful. The problem is that his identity is unknown. Mr. Mo, do you accept the protection job? Yes. You want to hire me? Mohan had opened a security company according to Qin Zhao's request. Although it was a company, he was actually a general without an army. No security job could be assigned to him. Instead, some previous employers contacted him. However, Mohan did not want to do his old job anymore. It was not that he was tired of being an assassin. It was just that Qin Zhao was a huge mountain above his head. He did not dare to have any other thoughts. But now that Wang He was willing to hire him, he was more than happy to accept the job. How much do you charge? It depends on whether you hire me long-term or short-term. How about long-term? How about short-term? In the long term, 1 million RMB per quarter, which means 4 million RMB per year. In addition to providing you with security services, I'll also give you some professional guidance. After all, I used to be an assassin. I'm very professional in this aspect. If it's short-term, the minimum charge is 1 million. The service period is less than a month. You can pay after the mission. Are you still doing your old job? I don't want to do it anymore. Why do you have such needs? I can recommend some of my peers to you. They are of good quality and cheap. No, I'm just asking. Wang He hurriedly waved his hands and shook his head. I'm just saying if I need such services in the future. I'm just assuming you know. I understand. Then we'll talk about it when you really need it. Will others find out about this? For example, Mr. Chin. I won't take the initiative to report it to him, but he will definitely know. Mo Han replied indifferently, in principle I'm still his subordinate. If he needs to know, I won't hide it from him. Is it possible to not tell anyone? It's a private deal. No, absolutely not. I'm loyal to Mr. Chin. I would never do anything to go against him. Wang He's words immediately aroused Mo Han's vigilance. Could it be that this kid was sent by Qin Zhao to probe him? No matter what Mo Han was thinking at this moment. In any case, he would not reveal his inner thoughts. What a joke. If she said something inappropriate and Qin Zhao heard it, he would definitely be punished. How was he going to explain himself? Say that it was a lie? Would Qin Zhao give him a chance to explain? Of course, it didn't matter if Wang He really had such needs. It was obviously impossible for them to continue discussing this topic during their first meeting. What followed was an in-depth discussion about employment. Wang He was quite wealthy. Mo Han's pay was quite high. But it was still within his acceptable range. Plus, he had the protection of a top-notch expert like Mo Han. He felt that his life was greatly protected. Of course, Mo Han was an assassin after all. But Wang He had no other choice now. Do we still need to sign a contract or something? Mo Han rolled his eyes. Are you kidding me? If you break the contract, do you think I'll take the contract and sue you? No, I'll only hang your head in the city center while you sleep. The next day, Qin Zhao received a call from Mo Han. Qin Zhao roughly understood what had happened last night. But Qin Zhao only understood. He didn't call Wang He. To Qin Zhao, this had nothing to do with him. The only thing he needed to do was to send Xiao He abroad safely. In the next 2 days, Qin Zhao spent most of his time discussing with Baifla. During this time, the 23rd Blood Mary also came to find Qin Zhao and Baifla once. Today it was time for Qin Zhao to go home. Qin Zhao brought his family and Xiao He, who was a burden. Xiao He's paperwork was still being done, but she had 2 weeks for her tourist visa. Qin Zhao had already asked Alex to help with Xiao He's student visa. For Alex, 2 weeks was more than enough time. Of course, the most important thing was that he had enough money. Qin Zhao used Xiao He's personal bank card to deposit a few million yuan. If he waived the deposit in front of the consular officer, there was a high chance that it would be approved. Of course, Qin Zhao didn't need to care about the details. Xiao He was still very obedient. She was very careful on the plane. Private chartered flights were much more relaxed than commercial flights. At least, Qin Zhao and his family didn't need to be so reserved. 20 hours later, the plane landed on the runway of the airport in Los Angeles. After getting off the plane, Qin Zhao had Fei Lai take the kids home first. Qin Zhao brought Xiao He to the place he'd arranged for her. Of course, Qin Zhao wouldn't arrange a non-star hotel for Xiao He. He arranged for Xiao He to stay with Ethan. First, Qin Zhao knew Ethan very well. Li Qing was there too. Something really happened. Li Qing could also protect Xiao He. Mr. Qin, where are we going now? To the hotel, Qin Zhao said. That hotel is owned by an old friend of mine, so I don't have to worry too much. At the end of February in Los Angeles, it was already a little hot, and the air was a little hot. Ethan was lying on the counter fast asleep. Just then he heard an ear-piercing sound. Ethan opened his eyes abruptly and saw the annoying face. Fuck. The two always greeted each other so tacitly. Why are you here? Ethan looked at Xiao He, who was behind Qin Zhao. Who is she? Is she your little lover? Fei Lai's so pretty. You shouldn't do this. Qin Zhao rolled his eyes. My friend in China asked me to take care of her. She'll be staying here for a while, maybe a very long time. Chapter 2773. Mr. Qin, you're here. Li Qing had just finished cleaning the room upstairs. Seeing Qin Zhao, she immediately came over to greet him. Auntie Li. Qin Zhao nodded with a smile. Just then 2 hooligans came in from outside the hotel. Qin Zhao and Ethan were quite observant. They knew that they weren't just gangsters. They were probably gang members. Who's in charge here? One of the gangsters yelled. Seeing this, Li Qing didn't talk to the gangsters. Instead, she pulled Xiaohe. Little girl, come with me. I'll show you your room. Ethan and Qin Zhao were enough. She didn't need to do anything. Xiaohe glanced at them worriedly. Qin Zhao and Ethan didn't care either. Ethan could be considered a veteran in this field. He'd seen this many times. Hey brats, this isn't a place you should be. Old thing, do you know who we are? A minute later, Qin Zhao and Ethan each picked up a gangster with a swollen face and threw him out the door. Then why would these pieces of trash come to your hotel to cause trouble? Ethan was quite famous in the area. He'd been a soldier and a street thug. Although he'd escaped unscathed, everyone in the area was famous. Basically, both the legal and illegal sides knew Ethan. Even gangsters wouldn't cause trouble at his place. This was why Qin Zhao found it strange that there were 2 ignorant gangsters here. Even if they were members of a gang nearby, the old man would usually explain to them when they joined a gang. He would tell them who they could and couldn't offend, where they could and couldn't go. Ethan's appearance alone was enough to tell that he shouldn't be offended. In the early years, anyone who came here to cause trouble would basically end up in the hospital. In recent years he'd been much more restrained. Nevertheless, he couldn't avoid a beating. Moreover, Ethan had a lot of connections. From the local police officers to the street peddlers and pawns, he knew all of them by name. In this area, everyone would give Ethan some face. That was why Qin Zhao found it strange that some idiot would come here to cause trouble. Recently, the gangs in this area haven't been peaceful. It seems like the original gang has disbanded, and now a new gang has taken over this area. Some time ago, some people came to my hotel to harass the guests, trying to sell JNs and DPs to my guests. There were even some foreign guests who were scammed by the casino and left penniless. After I found out, I chased those people away, and then the gang members came to my place one after another to cause trouble, Ethan said helplessly. Although he had a lot of connections, there were some things that couldn't be solved by relying on connections. The original gang disbanded? Qin Zhao was a bit surprised. He did know the original gang in this area. It was originally a subordinate gang of Marguerite's gang. Because of Qin Zhao, the gang's actions in this area had always been rather conservative. Basically, the gang's business was to open some underground casinos. At the same time, there are also some controlled trade in firearms. Even prostitutes were not within their scope of business. But according to Ethan, the new gang seemed to have left its original scope of business. More accurately, it had expanded its scope of business. Qin Zhao knew what Marguerite's true source of income was. That was why he rarely touched certain things. More accurately, he didn't need these things to earn money. For example, the businesses he opened in some controlled areas were mostly to control gang members, not to earn money. Another example was that he controlled some prostitutes. Rather than saying that he controlled them, it would be more accurate to say that they were under his control. This was also a tacit agreement between Marguerite and the local police. While Marguerite controlled the local gangs in he also reduced the number of public vicious cases. It was a mutually beneficial deal. It couldn't be seen, but it was beneficial for both sides. But now there was a problem with the situation in this area. The gangs were no longer reducing the number of vicious cases. Instead, they were creating vicious cases. For example, setting up traps for foreign tourists and badger games were already very serious cases. Another example was entering some public places such as hotels to sell contraband. This was putting things that couldn't see the light on the table. At the same time, it meant that the situation Marguerite had painstakingly built up would be destroyed. Once the tacit agreement between him and the police was broken, they would have to fight each other. Qin Zhao didn't understand why Marguerite would do this. Or rather, Ethan, did something happen to Marguerite? Qin Zhao asked. Ethan knew Marguerite too. Qin Zhao had only known Marguerite through Ethan, the middleman. Ethan also knew about Marguerite's life. I don't know the specifics, but in the past 2 months, Al's crime rate has obviously increased by a lot. Is there more information? Chin, you have a successful career now. It's best if you don't get involved in some things. Qin Zhao narrowed his eyes and turned to Ethan. I still prefer a peaceful elf, Qin Zhao said, smiling. There was something Qin Zhao didn't say. He had never thought that Morguri was the underground king of El. He was the real underground king. Qin Zhao had always thought that El was his territory. Morguri wasn't. No one else was. Ethan was silent for a while. Looking at Qin Zhao, he said, There's a gun shop owner on Ami Street. He should be able to give you some information. Thank you, Qin Zhao said, smiling. Ethan looked at Qin Zhao and said seriously, If you can really do it, then let Althea return to its former peace. Oh, help me take care of that girl. She's in some trouble in China too. Qin Zhao stood up. I'll go tell Auntie Li. As long as she's not your little lover, it's fine. With me here, no one will threaten her safety. Qin Zhao found Li Qing. Auntie Li, I have something to tell you. It's about Joey Nan? Li Qing keenly sensed what Qin Zhao was going to say. I destroyed your nephew. Not only his cultivation but everything below his neck is also out of balance. I'm not surprised. Li Qing's reaction was very calm, as if he had expected it. Their family is such extreme people. Why do you think I left the country? It wasn't because the people of the Maoshan sect were after me. It was their family. They wanted to get the books of the Qingyi sect from me. They didn't care about family at all. Chapter 2774. Auntie Li, they're at least your relatives, right? I'm just an outsider. You don't seem to be very careful about giving me the Qingyi sect's books. Li Qing smiled. In her eyes, Qin Zhao was different from her relatives. Her relatives would only kick her when she was down. Qin Zhao and Ethan, on the other hand, had helped her in her most difficult time. In Li Qing's eyes, Qin Zhao and Ethan were her real family. She didn't hate the people in power in the Maoshan sect. She was born in a family in the spiritual world in Huaxia. She was familiar with the battles in the spiritual world. Moreover, the Maoshan sect and the Black Cloth cult didn't kill them all. Instead, it was her relatives who attacked her. In the end, she was forced to flee abroad to seek refuge. Alright, you're just afraid that I'll be upset, right? Don't worry. I won't be sad even if you kill him. I might even thank you. Qin Zhao heaved a sigh of relief. He still cared about Li Qing's opinion. After all, he'd made her nephew half dead. Oh, that girl is also a fellow cultivator, right? Auntie Li, you can tell? That's weird. All of them. Why can't I tell? Her breathing technique is quite advanced. She's like the Huaxia clan. You're saying she's from the Huaxia clan? Probably, Li Qing said. She's quite talented. He's probably a talent. Why does your supernatural organization plan to recruit her? She was the young mistress of the Huaxia clan that West wanted him to save? Qin Zhao didn't think that he'd found the right person by a fluke. I'll get someone to come and talk to her tomorrow, Qin Zhao said. She's related to the supernatural organization. It's a fluke this time. Oh, I brought this from China. It's for you, Auntie Li. Qin Zhao took out a gift box. Look at you. You brought something from so far away. Li Qing didn't reject it. Qin Zhao's sincerity was enough for her. Also, with her understanding of Qin Zhao, he wouldn't give anything too expensive. When he got home, he heard Portia yelling inside. Seeing Qin Zhao come in, Portia rushed to him. Boss, who did you invite? We went out for 20 days, but when we came back, the house wasn't messed up at all. Princess and the others didn't destroy anything either. What's so strange about that? The princess and the others have always been very obedient. Qin Zhao rolled his eyes and kissed Fei Lai. Okay, you and Refra haven't been home for a long time. Go back too. I'll give you a day off tomorrow. Boss, 1 day is not enough. Oh, it's enough. If you don't want to be behind on your credit card this month, you shouldn't have asked for so many days off. Credit cards were Portia's eternal pain. Don't worry, I have Refra. She will lend me money. Zevra, who was busy taking things out of her suitcase, raised her head and said, There's interest. Don't all of you have any sympathy? Hee hee, everyone chuckled. Giving you sympathy is worse than feeding it to a dog. Boss, where is this thing? It's mine. Celestial Master Zhang gave it to me. Fei Lai immediately went up and took the incense burner from Zevra's hands. Then she started chanting to herself, "Guide with the wind, believe against the wind, say goodbye to each other." Qin Zhao pursed his lips. Something from old Zhang might have some tricks up its sleeve. It's better to throw it away. Qin Zhao couldn't understand Fei Lai's Taoist mantra. But Zevra understood. "Boss, Fei Lai's incense burner is a Taoist long chant burner." "What's so special about this incense burner?" When ancient people prayed in Taoist temples, they used the fortune burner to burn incense and pray. Another way is to invite blessings home. The Taoist temple will give out a child cauldron, which is this kind of long chant burner. Fei Lai is chanting the Heavenly Lord Hong Great Fortune scripture. "Zevra, you actually know so much about religious culture?" Portia looked at Zevra in surprise. Qin Zhao wasn't surprised at all. What was Zevra's job? A former dragon slayer. She was a straight woman who had personally killed a giant dragon. Understanding the religious culture around the world was child's play. After all, many of the weapons used by dragon slayers included all the religions around the world. Some weapons even required one to be familiar with religious knowledge. After working for a while, Zevra and Portia were chased home by Qin Zhao. Then it was the underlings' turn. They were experts at housework. In the 20 days that Qin Zhao wasn't around, they took care of the pets. That was why they didn't rush into the city to eat people. His family was already used to the underlings' existence. They were also used to the underlings taking care of their daily lives. In terms of housework, even the diligent Zevra couldn't compare to any of the underlings. There was no need to mention the lazy Portia. So Qin Zhao sent the two back. "Darling, it's almost summer. Let's move to Moon Villa," Fei Lai said. "Sure." Moon Villa was used to avoid summer. The coastline there was more suitable for summer activities. Mirror Lake Villa wouldn't be hot either. However, it was precisely because Mirror Lake Manor's greenery was too lush that the sunlight was basically blocked. If they wanted sunlight, they had to either go to the lake or the grassland behind. If they wanted sunlight, their first choice was Moon Villa. Qin Zhao thought about it and decided to wait for a month or so. He would move in April when the temperature rose. The next day, Qin Zhao drove Fei Lai to Angel Beach. When Robio saw Qin Zhao, he immediately pulled Qin Zhao over to chat. "Qin, how was your trip back? I've already donated so much money to the coastal rescue team. Can't you just hire more people? Even if you can't find someone who can replace Fei Lai, you can just hire 8 or 10 more. You need speed to save people on the shoreline. If you can swim 5 seconds faster in the waves, the drowning person's chance of survival will increase by 5%. Fei Lai can swim 30 seconds faster than other lifeguards at 300 meters from the shoreline. This means that no one in the world can replace her. Even if you invite the swimming legend Evely, she won't be as good as Fei Lai. That's not a reason to enslave her. Hey, we're doing a very meaningful job not enslaving her. She comes home exhausted every day. Then why don't you say that she gets more vacation than other lifeguards? Her vacation was bought by my donation. As the best lifeguard, isn't it natural for her to get more vacation than others? Chapter 2775. Qin Zhao and Robio's argument would never come to a conclusion. Qin Zhao naturally didn't want Fei Lai to work so hard every day. He might even be in danger. After all, saving people wasn't just about swimming fast. Sometimes drowning people would drag the lifeguard into the deep water. Therefore, every time they saved a person, the lifeguards risked their own lives. Qin Zhao would rather Fei Lai go shopping in the mall every day. Or she could start her own company. No matter if it was good or not, at least her life wouldn't be in danger. She wouldn't have to fight against the sea every day. Indeed, Fei Lai's body was already stronger than normal people's. But she was still human. She wasn't Superman. Fei Lai was a normal person, so she couldn't control supernatural powers. So Qin Zhao had Black Ma and White Ma accompany Fei Lai every day. At least they could be Fei Lai's helpers. When necessary, they could also be Fei Lai's protector. Robio's philosophy was the same as Fei Lai's. They both felt that their careers were great and sacred. So this was something Qin Zhao couldn't do anything about. Of course, this wasn't the first time they'd argued like this. It was meaningless because they couldn't influence the individual will of the people involved. And the two of them would only limit their argument to the two of them. In the eyes of the bystanders, the two of them were just chatting happily. Just then, Qin Zhao and Robio realized that a group of people had come to the beach. They looked around with perverted hands and feet. They looked like thieves. The only thing missing was the word bad written on their faces. They spread out and occasionally came to the side of the lone tourists on the beach. They secretly took out some things to communicate with the lone tourists. Who are they? Qin Zhao asked. Robio's expression darkened. I don't know. They didn't exist before. They only appeared recently. I've called the police a few times but we can't get rid of them completely. Disgust was written all over Robio's face. They didn't exist before? This is a public area. How could anyone dare to sell these things here? But it's happening now. I don't understand what's going on either. These D*Ned scum are polluting Angel Beach. Then urge the police or report this to the media. This should give the police more motivation to investigate. Also protect Feilai. I don't care what happens to Angel Coast. As long as Feilai doesn't get involved, everything will be fine. It's not just her. The coastal rescue team is a big family. I won't let any member get involved in this. If there's any trouble, if there's any trouble that you can't solve, contact me at any time. Qin Zhao patted Robio's shoulder. I don't want to care about Angel Coast's trouble, but if it's Feilai's working environment, I have no reason to stand aside. West, gather our men. I'll head to the headquarters later. Guild leader, you promised to help me protect the refining god sex princess. Yet you return just like that. I'm really disappointed in you. If you continue to be so long-winded with me, I'll buy a plane ticket to fly back to Huaxiao and strangle that bullshit princess of yours. As expected, West stopped talking. He was truly panicking. It was fine if the traitors of the refining god sect chased after their ally's daughter. But if he, the guild leader's daughter, was involved, would she still have a chance to live? What a joke. Her corpse could be exposed in the wilderness at any time. She would be lucky to have an intact corpse. He knew that most of Qin Zhao's enemies didn't even have a corpse left. And the enemies that had the most number of intact corpses were the dragons. When Qin Zhao arrived at the headquarters, he heard the mechanical sounds of the construction site in the distance. West walked out. Guild leader. Why is the construction site so loud recently? It can't be helped. After all, it's building an airport. Even if it's a small one, it's still a huge project, West said helplessly. Guild leader, about the refining god sect. I brought her back to Los Angeles. You can contact her yourself tomorrow. Guild leader, you found her? Of course. Huaxiao is my base. Finding someone is a piece of cake. Qin Zhao was too embarrassed to say that he'd just met the person by chance. Wes was overjoyed. He didn't think that Qin Zhao would really find her and bring her to Los Angeles. How many people are here? Nagasaka Reiko went back to Japan for New Year. She's not back yet, but the others are already here. Qin Zhao knew that Nagasaka Reiko had gone back to Japan. He'd approved it too. Hey, that's it. I need to ask about something. When Qin Zhao arrived at the conference room, he first had someone set up a soundproof barrier. He wasn't afraid that their conversation would be leaked. He just didn't want to be disturbed by the noise of the construction machines nearby. Do any of you have any news about the recent abnormal gang activity in LA? Qin Zhao asked directly. What? President, are we still going to get involved in the gang's fight? Jalanash asked. If it's the old gang, I don't mind. Qin Zhao glanced at Jalanash. But the premise is that this gang's activities are always within my tolerance range. They don't commit crimes without restraint right under my nose. There was one more thing Qin Zhao didn't mention. The gang leader was someone he knew. After returning to Los Angeles, Qin Zhao had called Morguri several times. But all of them were dead. He couldn't pick up. Qin Zhao felt that Morguri might already be dead. Qin Zhao actually didn't care much about Morguri's life or death. If he really had to talk about it, Morguri deserved to die. He wasn't a gentleman. In fact, he wasn't even a good person. As a gang member, if he killed someone today, someone else would kill him the next day. Wasn't that natural? Qin Zhao had never thought about helping him take revenge. Right now, Qin Zhao just wanted to drag out the body of the bastard who'd made LA such a mess. As for whether LA could return to peace after he was dead, Qin Zhao never doubted that. There were always people who thought that there was white and black in the world. That was pure nonsense. Why could China maintain good law and order? Why can't it be done in the US? As a Chinese, Qin Zhao felt that as long as he was determined, law and order wouldn't be a problem. If killing one bastard wasn't enough, he would kill 10. If 10 wasn't enough, he would kill 100. He would kill until rivers of blood flowed and people panicked. He didn't believe that there would be any stupid thoughts of mixing black and white. Chapter 2776. I have some information on hand, Ruan Faxben said. He had the most connections among the members of the supernatural organization. After all, he was an alchemist and many alchemy materials had to be purchased through special channels. Therefore he had contact with people from all walks of life. Tell me, what information do you have? When I went to the alchemy shop I was familiar with to buy materials, the shop owner told me that the Wild Boar King, the ruler of the underground world in Los Angeles, was going to make a big move recently and some supplies might be out of stock, so he asked me to buy more. I didn't take it to heart, but in 10 days the Wild Boar King suddenly disappeared. Then a few foreign gangs began to fight in Los Angeles. Just half a month ago the dispute suddenly stopped. Dozens of people died and the England gang from Ohio won. The England gang belongs to the most radical faction in the underworld. They advocate using chaos to gain benefits. The Wild Boar King also provides alchemy materials? Qin Zhao was surprised. In fact, most of the alchemy materials are on the list of prohibited items, and those gangs don't know the actual use of these prohibited items. They only think that it's profitable, so they transport and take the underground route. You said that the Wild Boar King is going to make a big move? What's the big move? I don't know about that. Maybe it's to expand their territory or maybe it's to do some big business. Anyway, these gangsters can't do anything big. It's not like they're going to steal S-class nuclear warheads. After all, Ruan Faxi was not a gangster. Most of what he knew came from his contacts in the spiritual world. However, the spiritual world and the gangs were two worlds that did not have much interaction. Therefore, the information that Ruan Faxi could provide was very limited. Qin Zhao had hoped to get enough information from the supernatural organization. Unfortunately, the supernatural organization belonged to the supernatural world. Almost no one paid attention to the gang's movements. Come to think of it, no matter what happened to the gangs in Los Angeles, no matter how chaotic the situation outside was, it had no effect on them. Even if those gangs appeared in front of them, they wouldn't be able to escape. They also had the ability to protect themselves. No, not the ability to protect himself. It was the ability to blast the people on the other side into dregs. Qin Zhao looked at West. West, if I start a massacre on the black gang, will there be any trouble? People can go missing but not rivers of blood, West explained briefly. What he meant was that the gang members could disappear en masse. But he couldn't allow someone to discover dozens or even more corpses one morning. There was a world of difference between the two. Guild leader, I can help you in this regard, Harold said calmly. Most of Helitha's opponents belonged to the category of people who did not even have a corpse left. They were definitely missing persons cases. Of course, apart from the fact that there were no corpses left, she also had a hobby of collecting corpses. Whether it was a complete corpse or a skeleton, she was happy to add it to her collection. If there is a need in this area, I will call you. Qin Zhao was more than willing to turn everything into dust himself instead of adding items to Helis' collection. After all, there were times when Haris did not have enough space in the Dead Soul space. She would always use certain places as temporary warehouses. For example, the HQ's food freezer or material warehouse. Anyway, it would definitely be a place that people didn't like. Guild leader, Jalanash said proudly. I've learned a few powerful spells recently. I can also help you solve your problem. Guild leader, I'm also good at killing people. If necessary, I can chop your enemies into pieces that can be flushed into the toilet, Dong Tianchi said. In this meeting room there were always violent people. What they were best at was the technology of destruction that surpassed human knowledge. This had nothing to do with their strength. For example, the powerful Norma. Her strength was considered one of the best. She was also good at killing people, but she could not destroy someone physically like the others. Up until now, Norma was still as pure as a little lamb. She was one of the few people who had not killed anyone yet. Guild leader, when are you going to clean up the asterisks holes in Mountain Town? My uncle's restaurant has been harassed by a few groups of gangsters recently, Lind Beyonce said, gritting her teeth. If possible, I still want to solve the problem at the source. It's not good to have too many people die. Everyone glanced at Qin Zhao and then avoided his gaze, remaining silent. To them, Qin Zhao was the least qualified person to say something like that. Even the newest newcomer, Lin Beyonce, had witnessed Qin Zhao's bloody massacre. Fine, I just want to reduce the trouble as much as possible. Qin Zhao shrugged. Only then did everyone accept Qin Zhao's explanation. They all knew that Qin Zhao was afraid of trouble. West, find out how many gangs are in LA, their distribution and the number of members. Oh, can we collect their assets for our expenses? Not under normal circumstances. What do you mean by normal circumstances? It's normal for people to find out. As long as they're not found out, it's fine. Then collect their boss's assets. I don't think anyone will object to us taxing the gangs. Just then, Aduz knocked on the meeting room door. Aduz came in with Felwood Sko. Boss, Mr. Felwood is here. Felwood, hello. Qin Zhao glanced at the people in the meeting room. Today's meeting is over. Let's end it here. Hello, Mr. Qin. Felwood Sko shook hands with Qin Zhao. Let's take a walk outside, Qin Zhao said. Okay. Qin Zhao and Felwood Sko went to the artificial lake beside the headquarters. Felwood, how's the progress at the airport? It's going well, but it's a bit noisy. Mr. Qin, is it affecting your company's work? It's all right. It's a bit noisy, but the headquarters has soundproof glass, so it won't affect my employees' work. But it's best to control the dust. I'll try my best. It was troublesome to control the dust at the construction site, and it would cost more. But as long as it was a request from Qin Zhao, Felwood Sko had to consider it carefully no matter how troublesome it was. Mr. Qin, have you booked your plane? I've been busy lately, so I haven't had time to book it. What, do you have any recommendations? I wouldn't dare to recommend anything, but I have a private gathering. 2 executives from the aircraft manufacturers will be attending. If you have time, I'd like to invite you. That you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.